like to call to order this regular meeting of the Governing Board of Scottsdale Unified School District. Today is November 18th, 2014. Time is 5:01 p.m. Mr. Brown, could you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? We start call to order. Roll call for Mr. Jackson.
George Jackson.
Pam Kirby. Barbara Perleberg.
Denny Brown.
And Bonnie Sneed. All members are present. At this time, we're talking about the approval of the agenda. We'd like to pull item 8D, the M&O discussion, for the next meeting. Talk about it then. M&O discussion? I have a motion to approve the agenda without item 8D.
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is student and staff recognition and celebrations. Dr. Peterson.
Thank you, Madam President. Welcome. Good evening. Tonight we have a couple of celebrations with some individuals that are here for this evening. First, Dr. Mitch Von Echten will recognize two of our Ingleside Middle School students and the PE teacher for their presentation at the conference for the Arizona Health and Physical Education State Convention.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Peterson and board. If I could I have Principal Chad Cottle join me at the podium to hand out these awards? Thank you. Ingleside Middle School students Austin Woodley and Heather Hare. Oh, sorry, probably got that name wrong. Sorry, Heather. Students in Susan Leonard's physical education class presented to the student showcase during the Arizona Health and Physical Education State Convention on October 16th. The students taught a session illustrating how to connect how to connect physical education with the Arizona College and Career Readiness Standards. Specifically, students showed how 8th grade students rewrote National Physical Education Standards in their own words and creating real-world examples for each one. They discussed how 7th grade physical education students created healthier cookbooks from recipes they found and modified based on class research, how they utilized heart rate data to assess and modify workouts, and a summary of their functional fitness unit in which they created and completed their own workouts. The students concluded the presentation with information about Pink Out Day and Step Up to Cancer, which took place on October 28th. Their presentation was attended by Dolly Lambden, National President of Shape America. Ms. Leonard is the current president of the Arizona Health Physical Education Association. So if we could have Austin, Heather, and Mrs. Leonard join us, that'd be fantastic. Oh.
Our next celebration this evening will be by Dr. Melissa Sackos. It's regarding the City of Scottsdale Mayor's Committee of Employment of People with Disabilities. Melissa?
Right. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson, Sandra, it is my pleasure to recognize two outstanding special education teachers who will be receiving an award, as Dr. Peterson said, at the Mayor's Committee of Employment of People with Disabilities. And so I'm going to ask Miss Jenny Finney to come up with me. And Warren is not here this evening, Warren Rice, but Jenny, why don't you go and come on up? Jenny Finney and Warren Rice, both of them were recommended for this award by the committee. The committee conducts annual award ceremonies for individuals who dedicate their time to individuals with disabilities, specifically in the areas of counseling, education, and transitioning to jobs post high school. And so on behalf of the committee, congratulations to our two outstanding SUSD special education educators.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That ends our celebrations this evening, Madam President, members of the board. Next month, we will be celebrating our new National Board Certified teachers. Teachers were preliminarily notified this weekend. They are going through all of the final notifications, and we are very excited that we already know that we have some that have been made, received their certification, so we'll be bringing them to you in December. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. The next item on the agenda is public comments. This is the portion of the meeting where we invite the public to make comments. Although not required to do so, we do value the input of the community and feel it's an important part of communication with our stakeholders. As explained on the cover of your agenda, anyone that wishes to address the governing board can fill out a card, a blue card for non-agenda matters and a white card for agenda matters. They're available on the desk in the back, and if anybody else wants to fill one out, please hand it to Mrs. Como. For non-agenda matters, please take note that action taken as a result of this kind of public comment will be limited to either responding to the criticism made by those who have addressed the governing board, directing staff to look into the matter, or asking that the matter be put on a future agenda. Pursuant to ARS 38-431.01G, no other discussion or legal action is allowed. For agenda matters, please indicate your desire to speak and submit the card, approach the microphone when your name is called and in the order called. All public comments are subject to the following limitations. There's a 3-minute speaking limit, and Vice President Brown will hold up a card indicating the remaining time. In all cases, public comment is subject to reasonable subject matter, place, and manner restrictions by the President and the Board. Please word your comments so that they're not defamatory or disrespectful in nature. First person that I have a card from is Lori Arndt.
Madam President, board members, Dr. Peterson, and Mrs. Como, I'm here this evening to express my concerns about the overcrowding of students at Arcadia High School. Currently, Arcadia has approximately 1,760 students. According to the SUSD Open Enrollment Capacities and Processes information dated September 16th of this year, your guidelines stated that the ideal utilization ratio for traditional high schools range from 75 to 85% capacity. Our published 2014 facilities capacity is at 1817. This would mean that we're running at a 97% capacity, well over the target of 75 to 85%. Last week, it was shared by Arcadia's administration that Dr. Peterson agreed to decrease the number of students at which he will close Arcadia's open enrollment from 1,750 to 1,700, a 3% reduction. We are thankful that Dr. Peterson has acknowledged Arcadia's challenges and is making steps to move in the right direction. However, even with this change, we will still be at a 95% capacity. Presently, to accommodate Arcadia's large population, there are 6 teachers who give up their planning period to teach an additional class, or a 6/5 teacher. These teachers teach 6 units a day instead of the traditional 5. There are multiple reasons that this is not ideal. This would be the teacher's only break would be their lunch hour. It is mentally draining for the teacher. An extra class adds more grading, and to compensate for added burdens, teachers may reduce quality of assignments, assign less difficult work, assign less writing assignments because they simply take too long to grade and give quality feedback. Teachers will not have the time of day to prepare for lessons. This will cause them to work in the evening and on weekends. During work hours, the only time for teachers to talk and meet with students, contact parents, confer with colleagues, plan, grade, take care of personal needs, and eat is during this lunch period. This robs our students of invaluable one-on-one time and guidance for their teachers. Another way to accommodate our large population in limited space would be to have roaming or roving teachers. However, in prior email correspondence, Dr. Peterson has indicated that they are not looking to add roaming teachers in Arcadia. Again, I commend Dr. Peterson and his sensitivity to Arcadia's challenges. Roaming teachers are faced with even more detrimental challenges and are not the answer to Arcadia's overcrowding. Lastly, I want to thank Dr. Peterson for listening to the Arcadia community. You listened and gave us a wonderful principal in Mr. Slater. You have agreed to decrease the number of students by closing open enrollment at 1,700. This is a wonderful first step in the right direction. I implore you to continue working on lessening the population of Arcadia High School. Arcadia is simply too overcrowded. Even with this last reduction, we would like to see our school at a target capacity of 80%. We thank you for your time and continued dedication to Arcadia and all the Scottsdale schools.
Kathy Ellington.
Hi, thank you. And I wanted to thank you for what you all do, and your time and commitment is appreciated. My family's been a part of the Arcadia community since the early 60s. We've all been represented in all the decades. About 20 of us have been going to Arcadia High School. Our family has loved this neighborhood as well as my immediate family with my kids. And one of the greatest attractions is being the schools, specifically Arcadia High School. It was our small neighborhood school, a place as I had known it, of a place with smaller classrooms, easy teacher access, opportunity for high academic learning, etc. Arcadia needed a facelift a long time ago. It needed even back in 1981 when I was there, but they weren't able to do it till in the 2004 was when my daughter started there, so 2005. We were elated that finally we could have a nicer, more beautiful school. But the concern was at the time that with the larger square footage, better technology, and getting it up to code, that our school would become a big mega high school. It was going to be much larger, we were afraid of. But at that time, we were assured, and it was represented to us, that our school was not going to be that big school like it has become now. I mean, and I remember the numbers back then being right around 1,400 was what they had told us that the school was going to be. That it was all about making the school safer, making the school, better with the technology, nicer buildings, just a better place to look at. 10 years later, my son is a freshman. My kids are 10 years apart. My son is a freshman now. Go to orientation, and he's in honors classes, and I'm assuming that honors classes are going to be the smaller classes, a little higher academic learning, a little more attention with the teachers. I find out there's 47 children in his honors class. 47. I could not believe it. I really did expect something different. And then as I had researched a little bit more, all the classes were large. And I never paid attention really to how big Arcadia had gotten because I just assumed it was still going to be that small neighborhood school that's been so attractive to our neighborhood. I couldn't believe it. So when sorry, I lost my spot here. So then all of a sudden there's so many kids, and I couldn't believe that had happened. The teaching is underpaid. I believe the teachers are wanting to make a difference in these kids' lives, and I don't know how they can make a difference in these kids' lives with so many children in all these classrooms. I love our neighborhood. I love our school, and it's just too big. The school is just too big. We need to cut down the classes. The school needs to be smaller in size to be effective, to produce effective people out of our neighborhood. Thanks.
Amanda McCauley. Say your name right.
Amanda McCauley.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. Madam President, board members, Dr. Peterson, and Ms. Como. Thank you first for your time and your dedication that you devote to Scottsdale School District. We really appreciate it. The following comments are about the overcrowding at Arcadia High School and the need to reduce the number of students on campus to within district guidelines of 75 to 85% of capacity and the need to reduce class sizes. First, thank you, Dr. Peterson, for responding to parents and staff at Arcadia High School by reducing the open enrollment capacity cap by 50 students. It is a step in the right direction, and we appreciate the acknowledgement of Arcadia's overcrowding. However, we respectfully request that you and the board members continue to discuss this issue and reduce student enrollment even further. Using the facility capacity number of 1,817 published at a board meeting only 60 days ago, Arcadia is currently at 97% capacity. It was also shared that SUSD's ideal utilization ratio for high schools can range from 75 to 85%. It didn't make sense then, and it still does not make sense, that Arcadia is not being held to the district's ideal educational standards. No other high school is above 82.7% capacity. Reducing Arcadia's closed to enrollment number by 50 students is a reduction of 3%, but it still leaves Arcadia a great distance from the district's ideal range. In the letter dated November 14th from Dr. Peterson to Mr. Slater, multiple new capacity numbers were mentioned, as well as ways to calculate capacity. However, the building code from the construction documents was also included in that letter. It clearly states Arcadia was built to handle a maximum of 1,800 students. Adhering to the district's own ideal enrollment capacity guidelines, Arcadia's enrollment should be between 1,350 and 1,530. At this number, we would not turn away any currently enrolled 8th graders at Ingleside or ANLC, and we would still have space for new open enrolled students. Please understand that we do enjoy the diversity on Arcadia's campus, but at 97% capacity, the education of all Arcadia students is adversely affected. Reducing Arcadia's enrollment to ideal levels will be safer for all students, as well as provide flexibility on campus, which helps alleviate our current excessive classroom sizes. Because the override passed, the average academic size should be 33 students, and science should be capped at 28. All classes should be taught in classrooms originally designed to be classrooms. There should not be a need for 6/5 or roaming teachers. Please look at the numbers again and reduce enrollment at Arcadia so we can reduce our class sizes and provide the highest degree of education. This is what's best for our students. Lastly, I'd like to respectfully request that my November 7th email, which was sent to all the board members, be included and attached to tonight's board minutes in its full content. I have a copy of the letter as well as tonight's comments for you. I don't know. Right?
Thank you. Susan Speer?
Governing board members, my name is Susan Speer. I have 3 boys, all attending the Arcadia Complex schools. I've been an Arcadia resident for over 20 years, and I moved into the neighborhood for the schools. I'm here out of deep concern over the numbers at Arcadia High School. It came as a shock and a huge disappointment to me that my twin boys are each sitting in an English Honors 1 class with over 40 kids in the classes. I quickly found out that out of this particular teacher's 4 honors classes, the class sizes were sitting at 46, 43, 42, and 41. This teacher has years of tenured experience and passion for teaching, and while the teacher has committed to doing the best he can under the circumstances, he has expressed deep concern over the numbers and has agreed that their overall academic experience in this class will suffer as a result of the number of students. These high numbers are contradictory to the intention of honors classes, which were initially designed to increase rigor in a class size of no larger than 35. We have obviously lost this vision. I then found out that over 12 core classes at Arcadia have over 40 kids in them, while the district average is supposed to be at 36. This is all unacceptable. I then learned that 32% of Arcadia students are open enrolled, which is far above the district's other high schools. Combine this number with the high number of classroom sizes, and you have very upset parents who are within district and have committed to the public school system and rightfully feel that their kids deserve the best education they can get at their neighborhood school. There is no doubt that Arcadia is being used to provide extra revenue for the district at a time of a major budget crisis while at the expense of our students' education, and that they continue to funnel in kids based on demand and are not really looking at the cause and effect it will leave on the academic process and our overall experience for our kids. These high numbers are adversely affecting our students. For example, the state standards will be measuring critical thinking and reasoning skills. Our teachers know how to teach this, but with these numbers are putting the teachers in survival mode and a position where they cannot teach reasoning skills because there are too many kids in the classrooms. I have found that teachers are opting for easier types of testing, aren't pushing writing assignments, even changing their reading assignments to accommodate the larger class sizes, which directly diminishes our kids' education. Not to mention the concern of what these high numbers are doing to our teachers, their burnout factor, and their ability to teach successfully. Arcadia is seeing more district kids staying at the school due to the overall economic climate and the increasing difficulty getting into Brophy. I realize that Dr. Peterson has agreed to a slight reduction in numbers, but it isn't enough. Bottom line, these high numbers are hurting Arcadia High School. Please look at the other district high schools that have lower enrollments, distribute the open enroll kids accordingly, fill those high schools, and bring Arcadia back to where it belongs. Our kids deserve better than this. Thank you.
That's conclusion of public comments. The next item on the agenda is item 7, consent agenda.
Yes, I'd like to pull items D as in dog and U.
I'm sorry, D.
D as in dog and U. Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. Not U. V as in Victor. We're right next to each other.
If there's no other requests, can we have a motion to approve the consent agenda other than items 7D and 7V?
So moved.
Seconded.
Been moved in second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Item 7D, personnel action.
Okay, thank you. My questions on this are a bit more general. This item is always every month in our consent agenda, and I'm wondering if we could move forward with a couple of enhancements to this. On the unit assignment, it says the school usually, and if there's not a school, then I assume it's an administrative position. I guess that would be my first question. Is that a correct assumption?
No.
Okay.
If it doesn't have a school, it could be a department, but so if it was nutritional service, they're still at a school even though it just says nutritional service.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be admin, and it necessarily wouldn't be at the ed
like-
center either.
So why wouldn't we put the school?
Some of them are roving.
Okay.
So they have a couple positions that will fill in for someone. Facility services does the same thing. There might be some positions that are roving, so if someone's absent, they go and cover. So they may not be assigned to just
Okay.
one school.
So my request is, could we think about, so that we could become more transparent on this document, to add a column for the non-school, the non-campus, and the lion's share of these are the campus positions. I mean, over 80% of them easy. But for the non-campus positions, 2 columns. One is, was this position budgeted or not? Is it an in-budget or out-of-budget position? And then secondly, if it was budgeted, it's been vacant since when?
So I need clarification on in budget or out of budget. So are you talking about, is it a new position or is it it's a vacant position?
New.
Okay, so
New
you want to
posi-
know if it's a new position.
So in the first column, it'd be, is this a new position that was created? And then the second column is, if it's not new, it's been vacant since when, for how long? So vacant date, vacated date or something.
I mean, those are definitely possibilities. Absolutely. I don't know if anyone else wanted to share thoughts on that.
Like good information to
Okay.
me.
So just add a column of if it's a new position, and then a column of the vacancy date.
Right. And to keep it minimal work for staff, only for the non-campus positions. So the non-school, only the non-school sites. Because I think otherwise this document could get really laborious.
So when you say non-school, if it's a bus driver,
So if
Would you
it has a unit that's a school, I'm looking at it right now.
Mhm.
It says Pueblo, Arcadia, Chaparral, Pueblo, like the first 7 or 8, I wouldn't request those new data items because they're at a school. But if it's a department or an administrative position, not at a school, so therefore the school is not listed on this page, then we would add those new items.
Okay, and I'm also going to go back and look at, because we could, like security or security officer, I'd have to see, some of them are roving to take care of it if there's an absence. We have a couple positions that way. Otherwise, some of them are school. So I'll make sure that if we have that information, it is a
Maybe you
school
could
to
just
make
put
sure
roving,
that's
and so
on there.
instead of putting, like you would have, on many of these, there's Saguaro, Pueblo, it goes Arcadia, maybe it's just roving. And then you wouldn't have
Would
to
take
add,
those
take
off
those
of
off
those
too.
columns
Mhm.
then. Okay, all right.
I'm wondering along the same lines if it wouldn't be constructive to know if a position is added, if it is required by either a grant or a program. If it's not in the school, if it's I mean, even if it's an asterisk or something.
Yeah, I would have to check what information, because we obviously don't put in all the position requests, although we do process
Mhm.
them along the way, but we might not necessarily know if it's a required because of something. That would be what the departments would know. So I would have to think through the process to see, is there a way for us to know that, or does that mean we have to contact the department every time we need to figure out that information on every new employee? And the size of our...
I would say not new employee, maybe new position.
Oh, so
If
just
there's
on
any-
new positions, not
if-
on any of the vacancies?
If there's a new position that's being created,
Okay.
if it's related to grant funding or program funding as a dedicated income source.
So just for clarification, so that you want to know whether or not it's funded out of M&O dollars or if it's coming from a different funding source?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Only if it's a newly created position.
Okay.
Well, I'm just going to jump in here because I think most of us kind of understand the motivation or the spirit of the intent of adding this information, as we are lucky, fortunate position of having override dollars. Also comes the responsibility of accounting for all those override dollars and with all the transparency that we can. So I guess I just want to kind of clarify my understanding of the intent of this request. So.
Can I do one more clarification? Board President, when you're talking about the new positions with grant, is that also for just non-school sites?
I would say yes.
Yes, okay, so all of it's for non-school sites. Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Board President, do you want to approve these individually or?
Let's do them individually.
Okay, so I move to approve item 7D.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. The next item for consideration then is item 7V.
Okay, thank you. Item 7V is the renewal of the recreational facilities use agreement for Arcadia Little League. And just for the benefit of those watching, do you want to recap real quick what that's about?
Madam President, Board Member Kirby, the Arcadia Little League rents space at Ingleside, or rents the fields, excuse me, not space, at the Ingleside Middle School. Has done so for many, many years. I'm not sure exactly what date it started. They rent the baseball fields and softball fields and maintain those as part of the rental agreement.
Okay, so I can't remember if this was an offline conversation or if it's in the consent detail, but this lease agreement covers what expenses and who pays for what. Can you recap that?
Sure. Madam President, Board Member Kirby, inside the lease agreement, as part of the agreement that was set in place many years ago. The Arcadia Little League pays for certain things to kind of offset the cost of the rental that we would charge them. And those things are field improvements. So they've done numerous improvements to the field. They've added fencing, they've added lights, they've added electricity, they've added bleachers. They also maintain the field, so they pay for the landscaping of those fields. They pay for the water of those fields. They pay for seeding and wintering, overseeding. They also pay for the specialized dirt that they put on the baseball fields. They've made some other major improvements when we were rebuilding Ingleside. I could get a list. I don't have all of them for you. They pay for some all the fencing on the outside. They also maintain, there's a building that has a snack bar and some storage and some bathrooms, and they maintain that. We do some of the daily cleaning, but they maintain it and keep it up and do some items on that yet.
And the lights, you mentioned
The lights?
the electricity.
The electricity. They pay. They have installed lights. They installed the scoreboard and stuff, but they also pay for the electricity.
At a rate of?
Whatever the electrical. They have a meter out there, so.
Well, I think somewhere, and I could try to scan to it, there was a $14 an hour for lights that was quoted.
Yes.
Okay, so.
I'd have to scan for it, but.
Okay, so on the maintenance, now let's start with the improvements. Do they do the improvements and then gift it to the district, or do we do them, they just give us dollars? So like, do they go get the bleacher and put the bleacher and then gift the bleacher, or they give us dollars to go buy bleachers?
They make the improvements and then gift the improvements to us.
Okay. Okay, and then what about the maintenance? Do they actually go out and mow the field, or do we mow it and they reimburse us?
The landscaping is done by an outside company that they contract with.
Okay, so they're actually paying the bill, or we're paying the bill?
No, they pay
that
the
bill. Okay.
Mhm.
So are there any bills that we pay that we get reimbursed by them for? Electricity, maybe?
Electricity would be the only one.
Okay, and what was the electrical?
I'm trying to think.
Okay.
Yes.
What was the electricity rate in the old lease agreement?
Board Member Kirby, I don't have that. I'd have to look.
Because what concerns me is this a fixed rate of $14 an hour for electricity?
For the hours that they rent.
Per hour that they,
Mhm.
because we've talked about this for 2 years in Budget Committee, about electrical costs, electricity costs increasing, utilities costs in general increasing, 3 to 6% probably year over year. And without knowing what our actual costs are today, and this is a 9-year lease agreement, is that correct?
Yes, that's.
And to lock in for the next 9 years, it seems that it's a bit risky.
Yeah, Board Member Kirby, we can, if that's a concern of the board, we can definitely go back to Arcadia Little League and discuss a provision of possibly an annual review, which we do also internally, and then we can go back to them and give them some inflators.
And they have done that. Every year, Kathy Franz works with our utility bills, determines what those utility rates are, and we bring that back every year and get approved. And if there's an adjustment that needs to be made, we do that.
Well, can we just change the language of the contract to say actual costs instead of a $14 an hour? Would that get to the same reimbursed on actual costs?
We can put that there. Mhm.
Okay. Danny's like.
I know. I'm not confident in that face right there. Is there any?
You, George, there you are. Or
We
Denny?
can put actual cost. Again, our rate is a little higher than the actual cost, and so we actually are benefiting a little bit on that because we put in there the cost it takes for us to do the bookkeeping and some of those types of things.
What is that actual?
Well, again, it depends on it's 11 cents a kW, so it depends on how many hours they do it. We have a scheduling system on there where we're actually able to go on the web and program that remotely. So nobody has keys that they can go just turn the lights on and override them. It's actually done by us, and we schedule it.
So it's 11 cents a kW hour or a kW?
It's a kW, 11 cents a kWh. So it's however many kWs you use. And Kathy has all those rates. We track it with Musco extensively.
I don't know. Again, I think a fixed amount, whether it's $3, $20, whatever a fixed amount is for the next 9 years on electrical utility costs, we might be making a little bit now, but 9 years from now, where are we going to be?
Well, and I think we could put on there that the electrical rate will be
Like an
evaluated
escalator?
every year.
Can we put some kind of an escalator
We
in
can
it?
say it'll be evaluated every year. Because if you put an escalator, let's say we put an escalator of 4% and it ends up being 6 or 8% one year, it could be a problem. Right now, we're looking at some possibilities based on the new EPA rules that in Arizona, because of the carbon emissions reduction, the utility companies are going to have to get rid of the coal-fired power plants. And they're saying if that actually happens by 2017, 2018, we could see a 30% increase of our utility rates. So we want to make sure that we don't put an actual inflator in there. Let's review it annually
Evaluated
and
and
adjust
subject to adjustment.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and-
Does that work?
Yes,
Evaluated
Madam
and
Kirby.
subject to adjustment.
We can put, Michelle can correct me if I'm wrong, just so I don't do legal here. We can change the language that we can do an annual review and increase or decrease the cost based off of the district's annual review, not anybody else's annual review.
Okay. So with that, go ahead.
Mr. Brown?
The only thing that hits me here is we've completely overstepped the fact that these guys just dropped how many G's for putting lights in. And, I mean, that's a massive, how much, lights are tens of thousands of dollars. So a guy puts tens of thousands of dollars out of his pocket improvement to our property, and we're going to beat him up over an electric rate. I mean, they've added to our property value. So
They've had the benefit of solely using that. I mean, did we put this out for bid? The ability to rent this property?
We don't put, any rentals are just gotten from people needing it. We don't bid any.
Yeah, but
any
other people
rentals.
can use the fields at night. It's not like it's just them.
The fields are available to other teams, other programs at various times throughout the year, yes.
So there's an advantage then to have lights, because then we get more rental dollars.
Right. I'm not trying to beat them up, Board Member Brown. I hear 9 years. If it had been $14 for this year, 1 year, year to year, I would have been okay. But I just hear 9 years, and I know what my own electrical bills at my own home are doing, and that neither one of us will be here 9 years from now.
Nope.
And I just don't want to set up a financial situation where they look back and who was on that board 9 years ago that approved this silly contract.
I just think we need to, though, acknowledge the fact that the guys dropped tens of thousands of dollars to improve our property.
What do we do with the other schools? What is consistent with what we're doing with everyone else?
Madam President, as Dr. Peterson mentioned, Kathy Friends in the maintenance department, building services, does an annual review every year of the rental handbook, and goes through and looks at the utility costs, looks at AC costs, looks at, now she's looking at new facilities when we've redone the middle schools and the high schools, and then redoes that calculation. She also asks some other districts what they've been doing to make sure that we're not outpricing us out of the market. So every year she does that review, and then if there's changes, we bring that back to the board for those changes. And a lot of those are put into categories. So a high school gym is kind of a category across all high schools. A classroom is a category across all high schools. And then we do winter rates and summer rates.
Mrs. Kirby?
To President Snead's question, but these are fields, and aren't the lion's share of our rented fields under an agreement with the city of Scottsdale? An IGA with the city?
Board Member Kirby, we do have some IGAs with the city of Scottsdale for fields. Most of those are in the afternoon, and we still rent a large portion of our high schools and our middle schools out after usually about the 6 o'clock time frame. But we do have some IGAs with the city of Scottsdale to use them for their after-school programs for our students, kind of that 2:30 to 4, 2:30 to 5 area. They also use some gyms.
I guess my point is it's another umbrella kind of lease that's kind of more ongoing. It's longer than just a onesie twosie. It's longer in duration.
Yeah.
So Danny, Dr. Peterson, are we okay with just putting in some kind of something that gauges more from year to year?
I
or
think to
a flexible amount?
Madam President, I think to comfort Michelle, she would like a motion to approve the agreement with the amended changes as discussed and finalized by Michelle so that we can make sure that she gets the right legal language in there that she needs. Right? Did I get that about close? Close enough? All right.
Ready for a motion?
Yes.
So I move to approve item 7V with the changes as discussed
For utility
by
charges.
For utility charges by Mr. O'Brien this evening, finalized by legal counsel Michelle Marshall.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion
you.
passes 5-0. The next item on the agenda is item 8A, information discussion item, a presentation on Navajo Elementary School STEM Super Bowl School.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. As we get ready for the presentation on the Navajo Super Bowl STEM School, I do have a proclamation that I would like to share, and that's for the American Education Week. And it's whereby our mission of delivering a world-class education, promoting the highest level of academic achievement, creativity, and personal growth to inspire greatness in today's students and tomorrow's leaders correlates with the tagline of American Education Week, great public schools, a basic right and our responsibility. Our students will be the leaders of tomorrow. We are equipping them with both practical skills and a broader intellectual ability. You will see that in the presentation this evening. The success of our schools is reflected in the support given them by our community. And the purpose of American Education Week is to focus attention on the important role education plays in our community. Therefore, on behalf of the Scottsdale Unified School District and Governing Board, I do hereby proclaim the week of November 16th to the 22nd, 2014 as American Education Week in Scottsdale Unified School District. And I see Mr. Josh Pantier is back there on behalf of SCA, and we would like to present this proclamation to Josh representing SCA. And in keeping with the American Education Week, we have a great presentation by Dr. Dave McNeil and mostly Amy Moore, who has done some incredible work at Navajo Elementary School that we are excited to share with you this evening. And you'll even see she did this in Prezi, so she's even more technology savvy.
She's hot. Madam President, governing board members, Dr. Peters and Sandra, it's my honor to introduce to the podium tonight Amy Moore, the proud principal at Navajo. She's going to share some of the great things that are going on at our STEM school at Navajo Elementary School. So, Amy.
Thank you, Dr. McNeil. Good evening, Madam President, governing board members, Dr. Peterson, Sandra. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight to present on 21st century learning. So we're fully immersed in 21st century learning, which means we need to let kids not only master concepts in math, reading, science, but we're also needing to create entrepreneurs, innovators, creativity. The STEM philosophy helps to foster that within our kids. It helps to break down those barriers of separate content areas and allow for interdisciplinary, deeper understanding. So we are trying to really reinvigorate our teaching and learning at Navajo with this whole concept. So what does STEM education look like at Navajo? First of all, our mission is to explore your world, discover your learning, design your future, and ignite your character. Due to our efforts in trying to reinvigorate this teaching and learning, we were selected as a finalist for the Arizona Super Bowl Best STEM School. Very excited, very proud. We're really trying to make this STEM concept more comprehensive within our building, and so this is a really proud achievement for us this year. What does it look like at Navajo? We had professional development with all of our staff last year where we came up with 4 school-wide themes based on the next generation science standards which all content areas within our school day are tied to. So here's an example of a bulletin board within our school that shows how kindergarten all the way through 5th grade has projects that are tied to our first theme, which was systems and system models. Our goal is really trying to get STEM for every student every day. Another example shows our 5th grade students who designed a water rocket, and then they actually got to launch it. You can see in the background there are some students that are filming it through an iMovie, and then these students actually broadcast it to the entire school in our broadcasting club on Friday mornings. And as I mentioned, we're trying to do every classroom, every grade level with this STEM focus. So in the other picture, you can see our kindergarten ELD classrooms who took a concept of simple common nouns on a playground. They designed an actual playground and then labeled it with those common nouns. So taking that design process even within our kindergarten level. Another part that I feel is very important in the success of a school is building partnerships between businesses and community. So in the upper level grades, that might be having students go out to businesses as internships. At our elementary level, we are taking those businesses and bringing them to us. An example of that is we have an engineer from the CNS company who comes routinely to our Navajo classrooms and brings design projects that their engineering firm is working on and lets our kids investigate and design it as well. So an example of that is a recent project of kids designing another tarmac at a local airport. And the kids project then was compared to the engineering project, and they could compare how theirs relates to an actual business. Another point of pride for Navajo is our enrichment clubs. We're trying to extend learning beyond the classroom day and giving lots of different interests in that STEM-related field to kids beyond classrooms. So here's a list of all of our clubs that we have at no cost to parents, and it goes beyond the classroom day. You can see Channel 3 spotlighted Navajo is a Cool School, and it showcased our garden. Kids were out there measuring and taking the perimeter in the area as they were trying to design a real-world problem of frost in our plants in the winter and coming up with a way to prevent that. So we were featured as the cool school. So now, looking ahead, we want to continue to grow this STEM as we're fully immersed in that 21st century learning. How are we going to do that? So some ideas that we have at Navajo is we want to incorporate more fine arts within our classrooms. Every child, every day, and look at how we can develop that into a STEAM school. That's one of our goals. A second goal is we're looking at a STEM Design Academy, and this would be for 4th and 5th graders who choose to have their full day included with investigations, design projects, real-world application problems in their day, all day long, throwing out all those content barriers. We're in the process of working through the vision of it. I'm working with Dr. McNeil and Barb Reinhardt within our science department to really solidify what's that plan going to look like. Then we'll take it to our site council, our liaison, to see how we can then involve the community with their input. And hopefully full steam ahead. Well, hopefully we will get there. As Navajo is part of the Saguaro complex, we're also looking at how we can project into the Mojave STEM School and then into the Saguaro STEM School. So our hope is that maybe these 4th and 5th graders starting the Design Academy in elementary could then become part of that Science and Math Academy at the high school level. So thank you for allowing me to come and showcase STEM. Thank you for letting me showcase Navajo. And thank you for all of your support in our STEM journey.
If you guys have any questions, I'm sure Amy would be happy to answer any.
Mr. Jackson.
I'll be brief. Great presentation, Amy, and congratulations on the finalists for the Arizona Super Bowl Best STEM School. That's huge.
Thank you.
Anyway, you're doing great things at Navajo. Very proud of you. And your whole school, really terrific.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Kirby.
So nice to have you come and present to us of what's happening at Navajo. It is exciting. I'm thrilled to see your leadership in this area and trying to come up with some ideas. I think it speaks to the principal meeting that we just came out of recently, and I'm very excited. One caution is Mojave, because Mojave has it has a very diverse community already with respect to programs. They have special needs, they have foreign language, they have conventional classrooms, and I might be missing something. And so the A in STEAM, if we want to continue it from Navajo through Mojave up to Saguaro, which also already is a very strong arts high school, would work at Navajo, it would fit right in at Saguaro, but it might cause a little bit of difficulty at Mojave just because it's one more thing he has to fold in. I would love to have STEAM somewhere in Scottsdale, and this it seems that it would fit in the Saguaro complex, but we just got to be careful with Mojave and don't overburden that school with too many programs.
Sure. You know, and that's a good point for me to take with Mr. Asmussen and really collaborate with him on how that would look coming from Navajo into Mojave. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Brown.
Oh, I was just going to say thanks. Great job. You know, and I look out here and I see Pueblo and I'm talking Navajo. What a great district. What wonderful choices our students have. Thank you all very much.
You bet. Thank you.
And, Amy, I'd like to thank you so much. STEAM is one of those things that's kind of near and dear to my heart, and I think the great thing that we understand is that it can be, it can just be integrated without having to be a thing on its own. It can be used as a tool of engagement. And I just wanted to mention, the whole time you were giving this presentation, I was wishing Ted Tyler could be here to see this. I know that this was one of his babies, and he's supported Navajo for a long time.
Right. You know, in fact, we have probably close to $1,000 in Ted Tyler Fund that was sent to Navajo, and we are going to be using that to help train our teachers to let his legacy continue on as we look at implementing elementary's engineering kits within our program. I've stayed in contact with his wife, and I'm going to invite her out to watch us during that training to again see his legacy continue.
And thank you for having my niece in one of your pictures.
She's a gem. Purposeful. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is 8B, English Language Development and Title I Program Overview.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Dr. Andy Forlis will be presenting the presentation on English language development and Title I programs in the Scottsdale School District. She was assisted in preparing this by Jesse Kenny, but Jesse is doing a presentation in a conference down in Tucson and wanted to be here, but we said don't try to drive back and forth, and so Andy's going to go ahead and do it.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Good evening, members of the board, Madam President. Mrs. Como, it is my privilege to be able to share the work that is being done in both our Title I and English language development programs within our school district. So a great place to start is the definition of what is Title I. We know that Title I is a federally funded grant that is allocated through the Arizona Department of Education based on a formula determined by our population. The population number we use is our 2010 census data. The program is designed to help students meet academic standards in reading and math in order to succeed in school. The intended benefits of Title I are before and after school intervention for students, additional teachers and support staff. Title I dollars are used to enhance the typical operating budget of the district and school. Extra educational resources, professional development, programs and workshops for families and parents, summer school, Saturday school, and Jumpstart programs. Within our school district, we have two different types of Title I schools. What we call school-wide, the criteria for becoming a school-wide Title I school is at least 40% of students qualify for free and or reduced lunch. A targeted assistance school has that designation if 35% of their students qualify for free and/or reduced lunch. It's important to really highlight what I have italicized at the bottom, and that we have students in every one of our schools who are living in poverty. We have 27% of our students throughout Scottsdale Unified School District qualify for free and reduced lunch. Lowest percentage is at one of our schools, is 3%, all the way up to 89% at another school. So this is district-wide, but we're really going to focus in today on the types of schools that we have school-wide as well as targeted assistance. At a school-wide school, comprehensive reform strategies are designed to upgrade the entire educational program targeting all students. At a targeted assistance school, those reform strategies are targeted just to the students who qualify for free and reduced lunch and demonstrate academic needs. So that's the significant difference. The work is the same for the leadership team at the school. What is required at the school level is to conduct a comprehensive needs assessment. So they need to take a look at what are the needs of their school academically. They need to look at attendance, and they also need to look at parental involvement. They identify and commit to specific goals and strategies to meet those needs. They create a comprehensive plan, and then that plan is reviewed every year so that they can determine what needs to be revised and then move forward. The Title I schools in Scottsdale Unified School District are Title I. We have 10 Title I schools that are listed for you on the left, and then our targeted assistance school is Mojave Middle School. There's another category that districts can qualify for, and that's district-wide Title I. So every school in the district would be designated as Title I. That doesn't apply to us, so we're just school-wide and targeted assistance. You will see an organizational chart here. Jessie Kinney is our Title I, and then there's a slash there of ELD lead coordinator. In the past, that was two separate positions, but through the budget process of last year, we combined those two positions into one. So Title I and ELD is led by the same person, as Dr. Peterson mentioned, Mrs. Jessie Kinney. From the green box down of the Title I lead coordinator, and everybody below is funded through Title I funds. Part of our Title I program includes preschools at 6 of our Title I elementaries. Title I preschools are a federally funded program for qualifying 4-year-olds who demonstrate academic need. It's important to know that the preschool is provided at no cost to students who live within the attendance area of a Title I school within our district. Parents do provide transportation for their children, and the design of the program is 2.5 hours, 2 sessions per day, 5 days a week. And in the 13-14 school year, we had 195 students enrolled. Currently in the 14-15 school year, we have 189 students enrolled in those schools, and those are 2-session periods. The instructional focus of our preschools is literacy and mathematics using SUSD curriculum and materials, so there's a seamless transition into kindergarten. Class size is limited to 20 students with a 10-to-1 student-teacher ratio. We do have an instructional aide, paraprofessional in every one of those preschool classrooms. Parent and family involvement and educational component is included, and in fact, it is mandated by Title I that our preschool families have to participate in parental education. We have workshops that are designed to bring parents and community members together. In fact, on February 12th, we have 125 families who will be attending at Coronado High School. That's the workshop that is most close to today. Some of the successes that we would like to share as we monitor the progress of our Title I students is in the 13-14 school year, 90% of our Title I preschool students experienced academic growth of literacy and numeracy in a developmentally appropriate setting. In the 13-14 school year, 74 students entered Title I preschool as an identified English language learner. This number is important to pay attention to as we move into the next part of the presentation that talks about our ELD programs. Of those 74 students, 64% entered a general education kindergarten in the 14-15 school year. 36% entered in the English language development kindergarten program. That's the 4-hour block that we talk about, mandated by the Department of Education. Talk about that more in a bit. So a snapshot of some of the activities that are offered through Title I, extended year and extended day programs. We have tutoring programs before and after school in all 11 of our Title I schools. We provide summer school at no cost to our Title I students as well. Our Parent and community involvement comes in lots of different sizes, shapes, and forms. Some of those include Rachel and the Land of Letters, Magic 123, which is a behavior program for families. We have a great partnership with the Scottsdale Public Library, the Ultimate Playdate, which is part of the City of Scottsdale. We provide transportation for our families to be involved. Ready to Learn and Ready to Read are just a few. So when we take a look at the budget, it takes a lot of money to provide all of these services. Fiscal year 12, over $4 million came to Scottsdale Unified School District through the Title I budget. That does include the ARA funds, which were known as the stimulus dollars that came to us from the federal government by way of the ADE allocation. You will see that there has been a steady decrease in the 2013 and 2014 school year. We anticipate a continued decline over time as our census data is changing, as well as the allocation from the federal government. Those dollars are getting smaller every year. So when we take a look at the budget, this is what the budget is designed to do at the very beginning of the year. So we have over $2.8 million in Title I. This slide represents our projections, our projected budget. And what you will see is that 91% of the budget is designed to support schools. 5% of the budget is allocated to administrative costs. There are many mandates that come along with the acceptance of federal dollars, mandated reporting, detailed reporting that is done by Jessie Kinney and her support staff, not things that are done by a classroom teacher. You will also see that 4% goes to indirect costs and less than 1% to private schools. I can go into detail if anybody has questions on the private school allocation. So that big, large, that first slide talks about what does that budget and those budget projections look like across the district. Now we're going to fine tune down to the school level. So at the school level, you will see that 97% of the Title I budget allocated to schools goes directly to salaries, 1% to instructional supplies, 1% to professional development, and 1% to support. The first one, 1% to support salaries and 1% to support supplies. So again, that first chart was the overall district budget. Now this slide is specific to when we have a district level budget, then school level budgets. What does that look like? And again, we mirror those with salary supporting teachers and instructional support. When we actually look at the expenses from our schools, this is how it's actually spent. You will see the breakdown on instructional salaries is 71%, instructional supplies 5%, support salaries 23%, professional development, and so on. So those are the actual expenditures after we've gone through the budget cycle. So overall Title I success indicators. We're very proud to know that Pima Elementary is an A-rated school and recognized as a National Blue Ribbon school. As I mentioned to you earlier, Title I schools have to create a comprehensive needs assessment as well as a comprehensive plan every year. Every year they're analyzing where do we need to focus and where do we need to support. 6 of our 11 Title I schools improved performance based on the state accountability measures, and 1 remained the same. You will see that there was increases ranged anywhere from 11 to 22 points. So when they increased, wanted to make sure that I shared the range with you. And then point decreases ranged anywhere from 1 to 16 points. One of the things that are historically in the world of Title I, we focused on reading. We're realizing we really need to maintain the focus on reading and add a focus on mathematics and numeracy to really bring our kids up to where they need to be. 1/3 of our national board teachers teach in our Title I schools. 100% of our Title I third graders promoted to 4th grade in the 2014 school year based on Move On When reading legislation. $9,805 in scholarships were provided to our high school students to attend 53 summer school classes to keep them on track for graduation. One of the components of a Title I plan at a high school, so for Coronado High School, has to include graduation rate. So this was part of their strategy to increase graduation rate, was to ensure that we provided funds for high school summer school. Over 1,100 of our families, the students and parents, attended parent involvement activities in the summer of 2014. 444 first through 8th grade students attended Title I funded summer school in 2014, inspiring Title I students through an integrated science and technology summer camp. That's one of the presentations that Jessie Kinney is presenting in Tucson this week. Collaboration with the city Scottsdale City Library has been great. We're part of Read on Scottsdale, Knowing and Growing in Family Read Alouds. So as we move into the English Language Development Department, so Title I is led by Jesse Kenny, as is the English Language Development Department. The funding for that department comes from two separate funding sources. One of those is desegregation funds, and the other is Title III, which is also a federal grant. So you will see here the philosophy of the ELD department, which is to provide specialized academic English instruction to students who are not yet proficient in English and empower their families to achieve success and personal growth. And that the family component is very important. As I continue to talk to you about services, it's really servicing the family as well as the child. Uphold high academic expectations for all students through highly effective teaching and data analysis through the 4-hour state mandated block. And ILLP is another fancy acronym, which means Individual Language Learner Proficiency. So a student who, based on the Azella test, if a student is deemed at a particular level, they are in a 4-hour block. That 4-hour block is mandated instruction in language development, including grammar and oral language and reading. Students who are English language learners, also identified on the Azella, who are not in the 4-hour block, they have what is called an ILLP. They're in the general education classroom with provided supports. The philosophy also ensures that administrators, teachers, and staff are in compliance with the state and district initiatives through collaboration and professional development. A hallmark of the ELD department is a collaborative team goes out and meets with every principal to talk about individual students to make sure that they're monitoring and ensuring that their needs of the child and the family are being met. When we think about ELD department services, we're going to focus on students first. Teachers are specialized and trained in English language development and structured English immersion strategies. Again, that is the language and the training that is mandated by the Arizona Department of Education. For students, the ELD department provides focused curriculum and materials that are aligned to the state mandates, refugee services, immigrant services, Native American services, compensatory education such as before and after school, summer school, and Saturday school, and then instructional interventions as well. Academic monitoring and testing happens all year long based on the results of the collaborative teams meeting to meet individual needs of students. When we think about services for teachers, administrators, and staff, that includes ongoing training, professional development, coaching, translation, and interpretation services. I'll share some data with you in just a moment on the amount of documents that are translated every last year, as well as the interpretation when we have public meetings and so on. Services for parents and families include translation and interpretation, parent education, and then assistance with social services and the school-home connection through our community specialists that we have allocated to each site. Here's the organizational structure for the ELD department. Again, the same person, Title I/ELD lead coordinator, is Jesse Kenny. Everything from Jesse Kenny down is funded through our desegregation funds. So when we talk about the desegregation budget, that's $7.3 million. It is generated through property tax funds that support the Office of Civil Rights mandates and academic initiatives aligned to it. 79% of that budget is dedicated to salaries. Those are classroom. We have 60 FTE, as well as that organizational chart that I shared with you, community specialists, as well as support staff. I want to make sure that we talk a little bit about the $556,000 in unallocated funds. Those are unallocated when we build the budget because we need to make sure that we have funds available for the children and families that come to us. We've had large refugee children that come, and we need to be able to make sure that we have translation services for them as well as the proper training and supports. So a snapshot of desegregation budgets that supports Scottsdale Unified School District are Avid tutors at Mojave Middle School, Ingleside, Arcadia, Coronado, and Saguaro High Schools are paid out of this budget, $92,000. All of the PSAT testing for all 10th graders across Scottsdale Unified School District, which this year we ordered 2,219 of those tests, cost just over $28,000. Part of our Office of Civil Rights agreement is taking a look at ensuring that we are identifying under-identified students in the world of gifted and making sure that we are servicing students. So the desegregation budget pays for proctors to administer those tests and actually purchase the tests as needed. last summer. The Summer Math Bridges program that we shared with all of you, $50,000, was funded from our desegregation budget to close achievement gaps in mathematics at all 5 of our high schools. And then summer scholarships were provided to 22 students, again, helping them with high school graduation. Now we move into the Title III budget. The Title III budget is restricted to tutoring, professional development, and supplies for current ELL students. So you will see that instructional supplementals are provided for after-school tutoring for our current English language learners, and then parenting classes for their families. And then if we look to the right, the $201 plus $1,000 is spent on the training and coaching that I mentioned to you. We are contracted with Kevin Clark Consulting. He is consulting firm and training methodologies are one of the approved by the Arizona Department of Education. This also includes summer school expense and transportation. For example, we have Parent University. We make sure that all of our families that qualify receive buses back and forth to make sure that they're a part of those events. Taking a look at student enrollment, in 2012, 2013, you will see that we had 1,297 English language learners. That number decreased a bit in 2013-14, and as of November of 2014, we had 959 students. We are continuing to exit students out of our ELD programs based on the methodologies, and they're working. What happens is the interesting thing that we are continuing to watch is when kids are exited, they still need supports. They're not completely, language proficient and ready to go. So it's really changing some of our strategy around supporting the ELD block, moving into what supports do students need when they leave. And it's important to know that we have English language learners in all 30 of our schools, representing over 30 different languages. When we take a look at the enrollment of our Native American students, we had 580 in the 12-13 school year. In 2013-14, 599, and this year, as of November of 2014, 596. So some of the success rates that we are paying attention to in the ELD department are the reclassification that I just shared with you, and that's based on a state assessment called AZELA. Overall, in 2012-13, we were reclassifying or exiting students at the rate of 27.3%. That's up to 38% in the 13-14 school year. And the test has changed and it's gotten a little bit more rigorous. So we were very pleased with those numbers. For community outreach, this is also a focus of our ELD department. Jesse Kenny is very involved in the Conexiones group that's part of the city of Scottsdale with the Scottsdale Fire, Scottsdale Police, many agencies coming together to really focus on making Scottsdale as a community the best that it can be. The Paiute Center, Boys and Girls Club, and the Healthy Packs nutrition program that we have in our schools. We have academic collaboration with Scottsdale Community College. The Hoops of Learning High School to College Bridge program has been a proven success. We had 26 participants from fall to summer of the 13-14 school year, and that's really creating that that high school to college bridge and setting students up for success with supports when they enter their first years of college. We had our first Native American, or our first graduate with an AA degree, is a Native American student. She is now attending Arizona State University. When she graduated from Coronado last year, she graduated with an AA degree, and I know that was a celebration we shared right here in this room. Here are those numbers about translation. Last year, our translators, which we have 3 of them, they translated 1,956 different documents. Those are from letters to you name it, websites. They translate lots of different things. And then they provided 569 interpretations. And that at 9 schools, we had 1,842 parents attending English classes where the parents are learning to speak the language that their students are learning to speak. So if you have questions, and a large thank you for listening to all of that information. What questions can I answer?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to thank you so much for just giving us a glimpse at the complexities of some of the programs that we don't see every day, we don't see the evidence of every day, and it just takes a lot of people doing their job in order to get that kind of result. The result that we see exiting out of our that is just phenomenal.
Another reason why Jesse is down in Tucson to go talk about that.
Okay. Other people are noticing.
Yes.
I just thank you so much. These are such important programs to the overall success of our district and just even to our state in the future. So thanks for that explanation. Mr. Jackson?
I didn't think you saw my light.
Oh.
I was worried. No, Andy, fantastic presentation. Your depth of knowledge here is impressive, to say the least. I just wanted to mirror what Bonnie said. This is a very complex program. I was having trouble following you, frankly, on some of it. There's a lot there. I think it just reiterates one more time the importance of public schools and how we do a lot more than educate kids. We bring families in and educate, we bring families along and it's makes me feel good as a supporter of public education in this school district. Anyway, fantastic presentation. There was a lot more here than I did not realize. So
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Mrs. Kirby?
Thank you, Dr. Forlis. And
Thank you.
I agree with Board Member Jackson. This is complex. It's all interwoven, and thank you for answering all of my questions.
Sure.
A few follow-ups. Okay,
Sure.
back on the Title I grant, the full year, it's a pie chart, and it has the reference to the private school. You have to explain that, because we're all
Okay,
like, what
now
is
you're
that?
wondering. Okay, so the reference to the private school. If you are a student who qualifies for free and reduced lunch in a Title I school attendance area, we do what's called a PPA, a per pupil allocation for Title I. That is $113. So if you go to a private school, we send the $113 to the private school.
Okay.
Goes with the student.
Okay, and then I want to talk a little bit more on the question I had about the Title I dollars for preschools.
Mm-hmm.
And so my question was, I had thought that our preschools were all community ed funded by tuition. And I knew we had some sliding scales, and I guess those sliding scales are funded by these Title I dollars for families who qualify, or no? Okay.
No. Thank you for your question, Board Member Kirby. We have 3 different kinds of preschool programs within our school district. Title I, PANDA, which comes through special ed, and community schools. Community schools is tuition-based, and the sliding scale really is for employee discounts.
Okay.
And then PANDA is
Right.
a special ed that is regulated under IDEA, federal law. And then Title I, separate. It's a half-day program. It is only in our Title I schools, and it's very specific. It's only 4-year-olds, and they have to live within the attendance area of a Title I
Okay.
school to attend.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And then you had mentioned that as a district, we wanted to add focus on mathematics and numeracy. Can you just elaborate a bit on what you're thinking?
There's 4 goals that the Title I plan has to encompass. One of those is when the team comes together at the school and writes their Title I plan, they have to focus on reading, and they have to focus on the 2015 AMAOs, those annual measurable academic
site.
objectives at the site.
Got it.
Same thing for math. So what we've done is spent a lot of time, energy, and resource on that reading goal, not nearly enough time on the math goal, and that's where we need to stretch ourselves.
Okay, great. And then one last question. I'm going to try to find the page. It's on the DSEG page towards the back. And it talks about snapshot of DSEG budget supporting SUSD. And I had asked this question about gifted.
Oh, good.
Does the Title I, does the DSEG dollars, do the dollars follow the Title I student, or do the dollars go to the Title I school, or is there any? But
Board Member Kirby, I understand your question is yes. The answer is yes and no.
Of course.
What happens is, right, the desegregate, so our desegregation plan fulfills the agreement that we have with the Office of Civil Rights. And part of our OCR agreement has an area in there around gifted students. So we are providing the proctors and the testing for identifying gifted students across the district.
Who are
But across
Title
the
I,
district.
or just any
Across
gifted
the
student?
district. Just like our PSAT testing is for all 10th graders. funded out of the DSEG budget, because we have in our OCR agreement, our OCR agreement is about proper identification of gifted students, as well as systems in place to encourage all students to participate in honors, AP, and IB programs.
Okay,
PSAT testing is part of that for high schools, realizing potential.
So that's why I'm confused. So the question I'd asked in writing was, is our gifted program funded by DSEG?
The proctor to go out and administer the test to the students at Hopi, yes. And then the dollars to buy the paper test is funded through DSEG, but the FTE at Hopi is not coming out of DSEG.
Could it? Let me ask the question a different way. What other gifted related expenses could come out of DSEG besides the proctor and the test?
Well, we are supplementing our FTE in our Title I schools where we do, so that's why the answer was yes and no. We are supplementing where we don't have enough kids necessarily to make a pull-out program. We supplement that with DSEG funds so that our kids can have services.
Just at our Title I schools or across the district?
Well, if it was they happen to be, the low numbers happen to be in our Title I schools, but if the lower number was in any other school, we could do the same.
The desegregation budget is not, it's got to be separated. It's not Title I.
Right.
And truly for the gifted, part of the OCR requirement is to try to identify, because we did not have a good job and have good participation of students of color and different racial backgrounds in our gifted programs. And so one of the requirements was to go out and make sure that we get those students and identify them and get them those opportunities. So that's what that was for. That was not due to their free and reduced lunch.
Right.
It was due to the overall students of color and racial background and those participation rates.
Okay. That makes, therefore, so it's ethnicity based.
Correct.
Okay, I understand now. Thank you.
Okay.
I just had one more question.
Sure.
Clarification. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Brown. Go before me, please.
You know, with all this said, and the amount of work that everybody's doing, and the amount of students that need help, I just thought I'd also point out that you don't become an A district unless we're taking everybody along. I'll go back to David's line. You know, you can raise the bar, but you got to raise the floor. And the floor looks like it's just getting better and better all the time, and I want to thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that with the Title I schools, there's the school-wide program and then the targeted assistance. So in the school-wide program, whether you qualify for free or reduced lunch or not, you're still, if you're in that school, you're benefiting from the additional program.
In a school-wide school, that is correct, President.
Thank you so much. I think our comments are done. Presentation.
Sure, I think I'm standing right here. Let's do it again. All right. So do you want
Madam President, members of the board, as you've seen and heard and read in the media, there's been a lot of discussion regarding the Common Core standards, and in Arizona, it was changed to the Arizona College and Career Readiness Standards, and those Common Core standards were actually modified to be focused more towards Arizona. The state just recently, State Board of Education, did a major process and awarded a new assessment. There's going to be a lot of work going into that as we move forward, and we wanted to update you so the board has an understanding of where we are and what we know, because there is a lot of things being said out there that confuse a lot of the issues. So we wanted to make sure we try to clear the muddy water as much as possible, and Dr. Forlis is going to do that.
Got a whole minute to breathe.
There we go. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson and Sandra. I have an opportunity tonight to share some new information about the future of state assessment in the state of Arizona. To get us started in the presentation and bring us up to speed on all the latest and greatest of acronyms, one of the things I just want to make sure that as we continue through the presentation, we know exactly what we're talking about with acronyms. Arizona College and Career Readiness Standards, as Dr. Peterson just mentioned, those are the standards that are currently in place in the state of Arizona, known as the ACCRS. AIMS is the Arizona Instrument to Measure Standards. Arizona Department of Education is a player in all this. That's the ADE. The American Institute of Research is the vendor that was selected by the State Board of Education to provide our new state assessment. Arizona Measurement of Educational Readiness to Inform Teaching is the name of the test, which is called AZ Merit. EOCs are a new acronym for us. Those are end-of-course tests that are part of this new system. And then the State Board of Education is the SBOE. So here we go with some new acronyms. It's important for all of us to stay on top of this. And one of the things that I do regularly is just get right onto the website from the Arizona Department of Ed. There is a segment of the website dedicated to AZ Merit. It was updated as recently as November 14th. So constant information is coming to us. It's important to start with the state process. So when we think about how did we get here? Well, we start with the State Board of Education. The State Board of Education is an 11-member board that sets policies for public education. All but the state superintendent is appointed by the governor and approved by the Senate. In January of 2015, there will be 5 positions open on the State Board of Education. One of those goes to the state superintendent. One of those will be to replace a university president, so it needs to be replaced with a university president. The same is true with the county superintendent and then 2 public members. So the State Board of Education sets policy. They are the ones who adopted the Common Core state standards in grades K through 12 in English Language Arts and Mathematics in 2010. With that adoption came a mandate to schools that we needed to begin implementation in kindergarten in 2011, which SUSD did. In 2013-14, we were told that we needed to have full implementation of all standards in all grade levels. In 2013, Governor Brewer issued an executive order that renamed the state's Common Core academic standards to the Arizona College and Career Readiness Standards. This affirmed that Arizona is acting independently from the federal government. Also important to know, with the Arizona College and Career Ready Standards, that Arizona had the opportunity to add 15% to the standards known as the Common Core, which Arizona did. So now that we have new standards, comes a new test. So here's the process thus far, a summary of the process for the state assessment. Arizona law does require that the State Board of Education has to adopt and implement a test to measure student achievement. The assessment will inform the state's accountability measures, which include the A through F letter grades, move on when reading, principal and teacher evaluation. As required by law, an independent evaluation team of Arizona educational stakeholders with knowledge and expertise in the area of student assessment was formed. On November 3rd of 2014, the Evaluation Committee unanimously recommended that the American Institute of Research, that acronym of AIR, was to provide Arizona Merit as our state assessment. The Arizona State Legislature allocated $19 million to fund the test, and the test will be administered in the spring of 2015. Last week, we got the exact testing dates, and I'll share those with you as well. So here's an overview, and some of it's a bit repetitive, but it helps to put it all in context. Arizona Merit will measure student learning of the Arizona College and Career Ready Standards in English Language Arts and Mathematics. It was adopted by the State Board of Education in 2010. The American Institute of Research has been contracted to develop an Arizona-centric test that measures Arizona standards and is relevant to Arizona students. The test is called Arizona Merit. A passing score on the new test will mean a student is on track for college or career upon their graduation. And Arizona Merit is meant to guide teaching. Unlike AIMS, Arizona Merit is not a graduation test. So then we talk about the administration of the test. We know, just the last few weeks, we have heard that students in grades 3 through high school will take the new tests this spring. Schools can choose whether they use paper pencil or an online venue. If they choose online, their testing dates are March 30th to May 8th. Paper test window will be April 13th to April 24th. The reason for the change in date is that the change of dates is that the online test the data can be received more quickly. Paper pencil, we have to do it earlier to get the results back sooner. Grades 3 through 8 will be assessed in English Language Arts and Mathematics. High school students will take end-of-course assessments in English 1, English 2, English 3, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. School districts, as I've mentioned, will determine if their students will take the test online or paper. Down the road, the goal is that this is done online. It's more cost-effective, and the results are received more quickly. So then we move into a new concept, which is called end-of-course assessments. New, this is not something that was a component of AIMS. In the past, AIMS measured minimum standards at the end of 10th grade in writing, reading, math, and science. AIMS was not course-specific, so it accumulated over time, and that was that high school test. It's also important to know that when we say that AIMS has gone away, AIMS has only gone away in ELA and math. It has not gone away in science. Science standards haven't changed. We don't have a new test. So our students in grades 4, 8, and high school will continue to take the AIMS science test. So getting back to end-of-course assessments or tests, they are course-specific, and they will measure proficiency of certain high school courses that I've shared with you. Middle school students enrolled in Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, they will take the end-of-course assessment that goes with the course they're enrolled in, not in their chronological grade as currently under the AIMS accountability system. So let's take a look at time. One of the other changes is going to be time. So if you take a look at the top on the left-hand side, you will see the subject area that is tested, the grade level, the time allotted to AIMS, and now the time that will be allotted under Arizona Merit. So if you take a minute to scan that. It's important to notice that note that at the high school level, our 10th graders were tested. Now our 9th, 10th, and 11th graders will be tested both in English language arts and mathematics. The next question then is, so what is the impact of all of this on accountability in the state of Arizona? Grade 3, move on when reading is legislation. Currently, the score to determine 4th grade promotion on Arizona Merit is undetermined, so we don't know. We know that under the AIMS system, that students who fell far below the standard were not going to move on. We don't know what that cutoff is or even the category name under Arizona Merit. The State Board of Education is discussing that 2014-15 be a safe harbor year to allow students to transition to the new assessments. That would mean that our accountability labels would hold from this year, and they would not count for next year. It would be kind of a practice year to help us transition. The State Board of Education will decide how end-of-course scores will be included in course grades and if they will appear on student transcripts. Graduates after December 31st, 2016 will not have to pass AIMS to graduate. We are constantly taking a look at what is being updated on that Arizona Department of Ed website. There are math and English language arts assessments at multiple grade levels. Our administrators have taken some of these tests. We used the PARC model in the past, taken some of these tests. Students are taking them and giving feedback to their teachers on what they look like. And of course, parents always have access to this. So we want to make sure that people can see what it looks like as we transition into a new era of assessment. So what are we doing within our school district to get ready for all of this? Our teachers and administrators continue to participate in training and teaching of the Arizona College and Career Ready standards. K-12 instructional materials for mathematics are aligned to the Arizona College and Career Ready standards. ELA instructional materials review work will begin for grades K-5 and 9-12 in November of this year. A new curriculum is not the outcome of this work. It is strictly taking a look at our instructional materials. We participated in the pilot of the PARC assessment in the spring of 2014. Some schools, some grade levels, some content areas delivered that test on paper and some via the computer, so that gave us some great data on our technology readiness and helped us to understand how our kids responded. SUSD teachers are applying to participate in projects related to the AZ Merit assessments. There's a call for, there's an application where educators can let Arizona Merit or AIR know that they would like to be a part of this process. Testing coordinators are working with our SIMR department to establish testing calendars for the spring of 2015, now that we know the time allocations of the test as well as when the tests need to be administered. We are keeping our community informed of these changes. This same presentation will be shared with Scottsdale Parent Council tomorrow and our high school department chairs in the afternoon tomorrow. Reminding our teachers to teach what we have agreed to teach and teach it well. We have our curriculum maps that have been agreed upon. That's what we're going to continue to teach. And we know that test prep is really good teaching. So we're going to continue to support those things that we know work in classrooms and keep doing it the best that we can. So with that, what questions can I answer? Yep.
Mrs. Kirby.
Okay, this is a presentation that's going to get a lot of hits on the website. This is full of very meaningful, rich information. So thank you for pulling it all together very concisely and clearly. You mentioned that the state has funded ACCRS test, $19 million. If we estimate what our fair share of that $19 million is, and we know what our costs are to offer this test, are we going to break even? Are we going to be close? Is our share of the $19 million going to come close to funding our expense?
Madam President, Board Member Kirby, we will not get money from the state. That $19 million is for them to contract with AIR to do either the online test or provide the paper test for us.
Okay.
So we don't get any money out of that.
Okay, so we won't be at a financial disadvantage at all.
No, it's just, again, it's different things as our high school teachers now are going to have to give that exam in those end of course and incorporate it into grades and whatever that looks like. So it's a little more time with our high school folks in those areas that they didn't do before.
Okay.
But to be clear, the legislature appropriated the dollars they awarded the RFP, the contract, to AIR to develop the AZ merit test, to create this test and provide it. So that's what the $19 million. That's not any dollars from Scottsdale.
So the implementation of it, we're on our own.
But
Just
as
like we were
with
on our
Ames.
own with Ames. So
Correct.
it's a wash. Okay.
Yep.
And then on the high school, the end of course assessments,
Mm-hmm.
English, somewhere on here, English 1, 2, 3, Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. Regardless if you're in a regulars, an honors, an IB, an AP, dual enrollment, it doesn't matter.
Well, we
Yes or
don't
no?
have dual enrollment for English 1 or 2 or 3 so if you are in English 3 or an equivalent that would be mirrored in AP or IB, you take the English 3 test.
Okay. Thank you. And then I want to get your thoughts on, and thank you for adding the slide on the minutes that we're testing pre and post this year versus last year versus this coming year or spring. Because we're adding 9th grade and 11th grade, we're adding more testing minutes. Talk to me. I mean, what are your thoughts on the additional standardized testing?
Well, what we're going to have to do is work with our principals and our teachers to say, so what does this look like? And we talked about SIMAR working with our testing coordinators at the school level, which are assistant principals at the high school, to talk about what does this schedule look like? And we really need to see what is the impact on testing, because we have to think about retesting and what are there retest dates and kids that are absent and so on. So it's so new right now. All of the details have yet to be worked out, but we've got to take a look and say, how are we mindful of preserving an hour and 30 minutes for writing and then 2 hours and 40 minutes for ELA or the reading portion, and then for math, 3 hours, which doubles what we did.
And then after the AZ merit tests come our post tests, correct, for teacher
Correct.
evaluations.
And AP and IB assessments.
A lot of testing. And we're not going to solve this tonight, but I would like to, at some point, maybe this is maybe this is a good year to do it, or maybe it's the wrong year to do it because we already have so much change coming at us with this, but I would really like to take some time as a board and step back and look at how much standardized testing our students are involved in over the course of 180 days. And look at it holistically to see is there anything we can possibly let go of.
Great project. We've started the data analysis of that, and hard to believe when the numbers came back, our highest percentage of time, we take our instructional minutes versus time tested, and looked 3rd grade is our highest grade level. Currently, under the Ames model, 2.3% of their time is spent with standardized tests.
2.3% testing. It's a great analysis, and
So we need to take a look.
Just
I mean,
take
that's a
a
great
look.
place to start.
Okay, thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy. I'm glad to hear that they're reaching out to include teachers in the process, and that they're not making it all happen trying to make it happen within 1 year. And if they are including districts and teachers and our administrators, I'm hoping that they massage it as they go along. We've learned some mistakes that have happened at the state level, and district level too. We've learned some bumps that maybe we can help other districts.
For sure.
I just wanted to share with our board members what we heard from the NEVIC meeting. We had 9 districts represented, which represents 150,000 students, 15% of the students in Arizona. And every district that was there said that they were continuing with the same model that what we've been going with. Every one of them.
Without hesitation.
We met with the legislators yesterday. So just wanted to share that with the rest of the board so that they knew what's going on. Oh, yes. I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson.
No, I just saw it. You went over this quickly, and I...
Sure.
What, in your overview, you said the American Institute of Research has been contracted to develop an Arizona-centric test. I don't know what that means.
I'll go there, Melissa.
I don't know. Maybe
Okay.
you could just...
Thank you for asking, Board Member Jackson. An Arizona-centric test is part of what's called the request for proposal. There is criteria, and part of the criteria of the committee was they wanted a test that made sense to Arizona students, that it was Arizona-centric, that it would be, for an example that was used, that would represent the unique desert climate in which Arizona students live. And also looking at idioms that might be used in the Northeast that kids of Arizona may not understand. And so to use examples maybe not of sea creatures, but of cactus and turtles. So, I mean, that's Arizona-centric, that it's culturally relevant to our Arizona students.
I don't know how relevant this is, but you mentioned 5 members of the state board that will be, does that include Eileen Klein? She's
She's not yet been.
Today.
Oh.
Today, it was, at least I read an article that said that she's going to be part of Governor-elect Ducey's transition team.
Board Member C, do we?
Leaving the Board of Education, do we know? That too, okay.
Oh, so it's something for us to be watching.
Ms. Perleberg.
Question on the safe harbor decision, is that's not definite yet, right? And we are looking for it when?
Board Member Perleberg, there, a very powerful group of superintendents have written a letter and a plea to the State Board of Education to ask for a safe harbor, and that seems to be the conversation, is that it will be entertained. Dr. Peterson, do you have more information about that?
Yes, Madam President, Board Member Perleberg. As Andy said, a group of us superintendents came together and put together a letter and sent to the State Board of Education. They will be discussing that at December 8th meeting, and I believe all indications we have is that makes sense. More importantly, we have to establish a baseline. We have nothing to go off of because we don't have a test. And so the goal is to do safe harbor so that we can get a baseline established. That way we have a benchmark to go against in the following years.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Kirby. No, that's okay.
Dr. Peterson's response provoked another question. So the A through F accountability, how remind me how that all fits in on this?
Very good question.
Because he was talking about
Member Kirby.
baseline.
So currently, the plan is that our accountability label stays with us for 2 years, last year and this next year, so that there is a subcommittee that is working through the State Board of Education, identifying their core values for accountability. That has yet to be adopted. They have adopted what their core values are and what they believe to be needs to provide the momentum for accountability measures. But again, the State Board of Education was waiting for new members, new leadership to come into play to say, what will accountability look like and how will this assessment fit in? That's the unknown at this point.
Okay, thank you.
But it's important to note that with Ames, we received a grade that was then transformed to a letter score. That will no longer be the case.
Right.
The state board and the committee and all the folks have realized a single test does not show a school or a district or anything else. So they're going to add additional measures to that AZ merit score. It could be your graduation rate. It could be other things that occur within there, how many kids are performing in different areas to make up what that final will be. So that's the discussions going on. It will not be, here's your AZ merit score and it means you're an A district. There's going to be other metrics added to that to define what is a well-rounded school, what is a well-rounded district.
Are we confident that AZ merit will, though, be one of those metrics?
Oh, it has to be.
Okay.
Yes.
State law mandates that it's part
Okay,
of it.
thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to
Thank you.
take a 5-minute break. We're about halfway through the information discussion items. I'd like to thank everybody for keeping us on track this evening. Let's take about a 5-minute break. 8E, student recruitment.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. This evening, Dr. Pam Sitton and our PIO, Ms. Christine Harrington, are going to do a presentation on some of the initiatives that we've been doing, looking at our student retention and recruitment and some of the success we were having.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson and Sandra. This evening, Christine Harrington and I will be sharing some data regarding records request and recapturing and enrollment strategies we're currently using. So as we look at the topic of student attrition and recruitment, we have the data of where records requests come from, and that's what we've been utilizing as our data to take a look at helping us with some of our recapturing and our enrollment strategies that we're using. This chart captures the records requests that we had. The records requests are based in Synergy, and the schools put the request in. The data was pulled from Synergy and represents requests that were made from July 2014 to the end of September 2014. And so the chart shows by grade level the requests that were made for records and where those requests were for, whether it was another public school, whether it was an out-of-state, homeschool, private charter, or another SUSD school. We have put it into a graphic to kind of show you and illustrate it another way. So this shows the grades, kinder through 5th grade, and each of the categories that are in Synergy that the schools put in when they get a records request that comes in. Here's our middle school data, taking a look at 6th, 7th, and 8th graders and the records requests that came in. And then the visual to show where those requests are coming from by the different grade levels. And you can see that our out-of-state and other public schools tend to be a big area, as well as in this one, 6th grade charter. And here is our high school records request data for 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. And then our visual for that takes a look at where are those records requests coming in and what are they going, what other schools are they going to. We have sat down and talked about some overviews of the data. And 4th grade has the highest number of students moving to charter schools, which I think is most we have talked about before. 21% have moved out of state. 27% have gone to other public schools in Arizona. We did take a closer look at that 27% because they're staying in Arizona, so we wanted to know what does that look like? Where are they going within Arizona? And approximately 70% of those are not staying local. And when we looked at local, we really looked at the boundaries. So we looked at PV, Cave Creek, Tempe, Bolts, Fountain Hills, Madison, and Phoenix Union. So about 30% were going to those districts, the records requests were. But about 70% of them were going beyond that local area. So they were further away. Some were Tucson, some might have been Mesa or Chandler. But we wanted to know, okay, of those that are staying in Arizona, how close are they staying to Scottsdale? And the majority of them were not staying in our local area. 43% of the requests were for charter schools, 3% went to private, and 4.5% were for another SUSD school. So what are we doing with all this wonderful data that we have to help us with our recapturing and enrollment?
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson and Sandra, we have good news to report. We have recapturing and enrollment strategies. They've already been implemented, and better yet, they appear to be working. What we did is we looked at the list of records requests along with no-shows and developed a campaign targeting those students who appeared to still live in the Valley and would possibly return to one of our schools. We developed 2 letters highlighting SUSD achievements that we believe definitely set us apart from our competition. One version went out to our middle school and high school families. That was mailed out in October. The other version was sent to elementary school families, and that went out after the override passed, so we could celebrate the fact that we were restoring specials and full day Wednesday. I'd like to point out also that Dr. Peterson signed each and every one of these letters himself. Along with that letter, we also included a flyer, again, depending on the age group, elementary, middle, or high school. And this really went through all the different programs offered at our different schools. The idea being that if these families don't return to the school they previously attended, that they shop SUSD before anywhere else. We've also launched a Cox Media enrollment campaign. And This kicked off October 9th. It runs through December 31st. What makes this advertising opportunity unique and I think most exciting is the fact that Cox utilizes geo-targeting technology that really allows us to hyper-focus on the demographics we wish to reach. We provided all of our district zip codes along with all of the just outside of our boundary, all of those zip codes as well. Again, the idea being to target that proper demographic believed to make the bulk of these enrollment decisions. This is a look at some of the banner ads that you will see not only on Cox.com, but also the Cox digital ad network. So Yahoo, Facebook, Zillow, Ancestry.com, ESPN, Overstock.com, WebMD, YouTube, and People. Again, this is another version of the ad that you would see, and these are the digital ad, again, on Cox.com and on the ad network. The difference being that this one, if you roll over it with your cursor, the video will automatically launch. And if you've got 30 seconds, I'd like to show you this video.
Scottsdale Unified School District, your A-rated public school district 4 years running, creating tomorrow's leaders today, providing excellence in academics, arts, and athletics. From the state champion robotics club to the world-renowned performing arts and nationally ranked athletics. From cradle to college and career ready, our students are civic-minded and engaged in the community. We're all in SUSD. Are you? Secure your students' future and enroll in SUSD today.
Now, this commercial is not only running online, but it's also running on Cox Channel 7, especially during the STEM journals. It's also running on TNT, Lifetime, ABC Family, TLC, and HGTV during day parts, specifically targeting that proper demographic we're hoping to reach. Additionally, I know Danny told us that he saw it on ESPN during Sports Center, so we know that we're reaching a much wider audience, and that is courtesy of the Cox Community Relations team. Those are some bonus ad spots that they've granted us. This banner ad will reach 1,025,000 people. That's how many impressions we expect to achieve. If someone clicks on that ad, they are brought to our allin.susd.org marketing page, but more specifically, the enrollment page, where they will find all of the enrollment information. They can just click and enroll today. You should know, according to Cox Analytics, our web advertising is outperforming others. It is doing twice what others do. The average click-through rate is 0.06%, and ours is almost double that. It's 0.11%. And this television commercial, meantime, will be seen by 184,000, specifically, again, women over the age of 25, and in the Scottsdale zone. And the Scottsdale zone, it far exceeds our district boundaries, too. So it's nice because Cave Creek, Deer Valley, some of that northern region, as well as all the Paradise Valley, parts of Tempe as well. If you're a Cox customer, you'll be seeing this. And if you have any questions for us.
Mr. Brown?
Is some of the financing for this coming from bus sales,
Yes.
bus sites?
Bus ad revenue.
Is this a trade? Are we trading most of it or all of it, or are we buying some, or what are we doing?
No, it's bus ad revenue and some gift dollars. It's
Cool.
outside of M&O dollars.
Outside of M&O. Great. That's the bottom line. Thank you.
Mrs. Kirby?
Thank you. It was bus ad revenue. What was the other funding source?
Some of the gift dollars that we have left over from last year.
Oh, district level gift dollars.
That went to communications, specifically to communications.
So we had gift dollars targeted, earmarked specific. Good.
Yes.
Okay. How long will the ads run?
This runs through December 31st. We're working on a second ad that we can throw into this mix, again, within that time frame, that will be highlighting what's coming back in 2015, and that is, again, full restoration of the specials and full day Wednesday, as well as smaller class sizes. And that's something we're running around to our campuses, gathering the elements for. Ideally, it will run before Thanksgiving. That depends, honestly, on our editing, their timeline.
Thank you. Good job. Excellent. Yeah.
Mr. Jackson?
I'm just delighted that Dr. Peterson, that Pam, that you guys are putting this outreach program together. Christine, you too, I mean, of course. But, you know, we've talked about this a lot. I mean, trying to recapture some of these students. We have a great story to tell here in SUSD, and we have the override in our pocket, thank God. And, you know, it's only getting better. So I'm delighted that we're going back trying to recapture some of these families that truly belong here. They don't know it, but they do. And they will, it's just a matter of time. So thank you. This really impressive marketing campaign, and keep up the great work.
I'd like to add one thing. There was a call that came into the front desk today from a previous chaparral parent who did receive one of Dr. Peterson's letters in the mail and is looking to leave the charter where they currently are and come back to chaparral.
Mr. Brown?
You know, speaking of buses, so, I mean, I know we're a little thin. Are we continuing our bus sales, bus advertising sales, and is that going well?
In fact, I'm glad you asked because, yeah, the Phoenix Zoo just signed a contract with us. It's a rather large one. They'll be on 42 of our buses. It's estimated $33,000, $34,000 that'll be coming in. So that'll help compensate for this. And then moving forward, I mean, we're tweeting it out. We've also had a PR agency in town who saw our tweet talking about bus advertising, and they're looking at it for some of their clients. So there's talk, but the Phoenix Zoo is locked down.
That's great. Thank you.
Mrs. Perleberg?
Love it, love it. I'll give a plug to the Phoenix Zoo. They have the most adorable baby orangutan right now, and I got to see it on Sunday, and holy cow, is it cute. So plug for them, and thank you. I mean, thank you to just the excitement that you're bringing, that I know you have a PR committee as well, or I guess PR.
Parent marketing committee.
Yes, parent marketing committee, and I'm just so excited that what they're bringing, and we do have such good news now following November 4th, and so just thank you to everyone who's ready to holler from the mountaintops that SUSD is terrific. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your efforts. The next item on the agenda is item 8F, Transportation Continued Efficiencies Update.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Dan O'Brien, and we have Bert Herzog in the back here from Transportation. Since last year, we had a discussion regarding transportation and our costs and our operations, and we've been working very, very hard to become efficient, to do more. We're continuing to whittle and be efficient, but we've got some success stories that we would like to share with you of the things that Bert and his staff have been working on and where we have been able to show some major efficiencies, and I think that's important that we highlight those for all the work they've been doing over this past year and last year.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson, Sandra. This evening, we'll just go through some information. We'll take a look at some historical expenses that we've had in busing, look at a little bit quickly on how we are funded for transportation through the state and our M&O dollars. And then also look at a comparison of the group of peer districts that we always compare ourselves to. So this is just a brief history of our M&O transportation costs. So you can see in fiscal year 12, we were at 8.2. Fiscal year 13, we were at 7.5 million. Fiscal year 14, we're at 7.1. So you can see that we've been going down. And fiscal year 15, this current year, budgeted 7.8. I want to point it out, though, because we looked there that we're going to be spending more. But remember that with the transportation, last year we had approximately the same budget too, but with Bert and his staff, we're very efficient. We have some contingencies in there that we use for overtime, especially currently right now we have quite a bit of overtime because we have some positions we don't have filled. And then we have for any unknown repairs. And then one of our biggest ones is gas. Gas prices are just the unknown. If I could predict them, I probably wouldn't be standing here. But you know, again, we're looking really good right now because gas prices are down and obviously wholesale prices are down. But again, you just never know what happens throughout the year. So we do that, but we hold that close. And Bert's back there, and I get on him just about every month on how are we doing. So he reviews that. And this, again, as Dr. Peterson mentioned, just really shows how Bert and his staff has really worked over the past several years with some of the discussion between administration and the governing board to make sure that we're as efficient as possible in transportation. Just real quickly how transportation is funded within our M&O budget. So these are fiscal year 14 figures, because obviously fiscal year 15 we are not through with yet. So we've transported just over 5,000 students on a daily basis. Again, this is an average. We drive approximately 11,000 miles per day. And remember, when we talk about driving, we talk about students. We talk purely in this situation about to and from. The state does not collect the data on sports trips, on field trips, on those other items. So this is to and from our schools. Last year, we drove just over 2 million miles. The state provides us on a route mile basis, which is the formula inside the budget of $2.49. Similar to some other districts, but they do have a formula that pays a little bit less, but we get the most per mile here in Scottsdale. We also received some additional funding of 18% for field trips and athletics and CTE busing. And again, all these dollars, when we go through the formula, they roll up into our overall M&O budget. So when we bring our full M&O budget in there, these dollars that we're talking about tonight are inside that already. So a few of the past changes to transportation that we've had. Several years ago, we brought back our in-house mechanics. So we used to outsource our mechanic work. We brought that back in, not only to save money, but one very impressive item that it has is it's improved our DPS safety record. So we are down, and Bert gave me some information today that we had a few little items to fix while DPS was out here, but they walked away with absolutely no violations whatsoever. So again, another kudos to Bert and his staff and the mechanics over there. We've deleted stops over the past few years, 269. And what we do here is we look at stops, and transportation tracks them on a weekly basis. They work through them. If there's none there or only one or two, we might move those one or two to a different stop, but we delete the stop. And deleting the stop doesn't sound like a lot because we're probably already driving by it or whatnot, but when you stop a bus, an 84-passenger bus that's running, got maybe an AC on, you open that door for a couple minutes, you idle that, that's a big item there. We've deleted routes and combined routes to the tune of 5.5. And then the Apache facility that we've done that has reduced the ferrying and towing of our buses. So about a year ago, we finished the small mechanic facility down at Apache. And that was really helped because in the past, when we had a broken bus, we'd have to get it towed all the way up to San Salvador. Well, that's an expense. Or we might have had to drive it up there. Well, those are maintenance dollars that aren't reimbursed by the state. So again, doing some things and efficiencies that we can do to be able to produce less cost. So, a big slide here, lots of information on this slide. So what we did is we always talk about this group of district that we always compare ourselves to. So what I did is went back through, these are fiscal year 14, last fiscal year, data. Transportation expense was obtained by the AFR of these districts, and transportation revenue was obtained by the latest revised budget that was posted to ADE's website. ADE posts all this data on their website, so this is where I got it from. So I went through and just pulled out what revenue they receive by the formula that I showed you a couple slides ago, and then what do they claim as their expenses for transportation. You can see there all but one district, which happens to be Scottsdale, overspends the revenue that they receive from the state on their transportation. Scottsdale, over the years and the efficiencies that we've made, now spend less dollars than the revenue we receive. So again, as I talk about, that $925,000 is rolled up into the overall budget of our district. So it's being spent in other areas within our district. So we're not going to stop there, right, Bert? We're not going to stop there. We're going to continue to review routes and reduce where possible, again, trying to add to that 5.5. When possible, we're combining midday routes with CTE midday routes. So when we move CTE kids around to the high schools and we have other midday routes that are working with possible special ed or preschool or others, we're going to combine those when possible so that we make sure that we possibly might be able to go from 5 or 6 buses to maybe down to 2 or 3, and we're working on that right now. Procurement and inventory changes to reduce costs. I'm working with the department right now on doing some training for procurement and inventory. One of these big things that we've done that we're still improving is in prior years, we would have to do a brand new PO every time that we wanted to buy bulk fuel. Well, that causes a little problem. Bert gets an email every morning of what wholesale bulk fuel cost is. Well, when it takes 3 and 4 days to get a PO through the process, 3 or 4 days from now, the cost is different. So we've put in place an open PO that we have some guidelines and some checks and balances that we do so that when he finds a good deal on Wednesday, he buys it on Wednesday and he gets it and we get it for the lowest price. We're also doing some inventories. We're working on doing some first in, first out, and some other inventory items, maybe not collecting as much as some of the newer buses coming. What are we doing with some of that older inventory? Are we using it first, getting rid of it so that we can make sure we're having the best cost that we have? Continue to review routes and stops. Again, they track that on a weekly basis, so we continuously look at it. And then improvements to training and retaining of drivers. We train our drivers when they come on board. We spend some time with the trainers that we have up there, and we train the drivers. And with that is a little bit of a cost, and we want to make sure those drivers stay here. Sometimes we have turnover. We want to find ways to improve turnover so that we aren't spending money training. We're keeping the drivers here that we have, so that we lower that cost. I can answer any questions.
Mr. Brown?
Are we utilizing eco-driving techniques? That would be, you don't make as many left-hand turns, you make mostly right-hand turns. There's a whole methodology, there's a whole science out there on eco-driving now and efficiencies, and I was just wondering if we looked into that and we're participating with that.
Board Member Brown, we look at every efficiency possible. So we maintain our routes, and we look at our routes every single year. We also have instituted several years back an idling program that in turn allows our buses to idle at the minimum required amount to get that bus up and going, maybe in the morning or in the afternoon, and that reduces, it's cold out. Let's go turn it on for 45 minutes and let it idle and get nice and warm. Well, we have changes and processes in place that only allows us to do those for 5 minutes. It also helps with the air pollution and all that too with Maricopa County.
What is fuel usage per minute idling? Hey, Bert.
Hey, Bert.
That's a good question. I believe a study that I saw, it's been a couple of years ago though, I believe that the study said that it was basically for every 8 hours of idling, it was like 1.5 gallons.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good job, buddy.
Mrs. Kirby?
Thank you. Okay, so let's go to the page that's the historical budget transportation. In the 14 to 15, it's the actuals for 14, it's the budget for 15. And you said that we always have a contingency. But some of the items that you listed as those contingency items, repairs, gas, and overtime, repairs and gas, we would have things happen every year. They might be different kinds of repairs and the fuel fluctuation, but we always know what the fuel increase is going to be. So I guess I'm not sure I view those really as contingencies because they are predictable. And then the overtime, we may have overtime expenses outside of budget, but that means we probably have headcount savings because we don't have the bus drivers, so therefore we're paying the ones we have more overtime to drive. So I guess for next year, what I would challenge you with is let's try to tighten our budget much closer to our actuals, and then call the contingency out and put it as let's label it contingency, whatever it is. And then on the transportation funding, the next slide, if I wanted to figure out what the cost per rider is the math simply the total miles, 2 million, times the 249 route mile divided by the 5,205 students daily? How do I figure out cost per rider?
To figure it out, to tie it out to the revenue that we receive, you have to work through the transportation formula and the worksheets, which is the worksheets on the budget. I'll be more than happy to sit down and show you that because they have a couple different tables and requirements that they do. So what they do is they look at things like, is it per rider? Do you transport them less than a mile, more than a mile, or in between a mile. And that changes that dollar amount that I said, that $2.49 per route mile, depending on what your average mileage is that you transport a student, that can go up or down. And I said, Scottsdale gets the highest, so some districts might get the lowest. So you have to work through that table every year to try to get that.
Let's talk. We have a meeting tomorrow, so let's talk about that tomorrow. And then on the peer comparison, the transportation revenues, the transportation revenue control limit, correct? TRCL. Okay. So when I looked at that for Scottsdale for 14, I found the 8.1 million out there publicly on the ADE database, I think it was. But then I went back in time and I saw it was 8.1 million last year and the year before and the year before. So what makes that number go down? Why doesn't it change? Why doesn't it go down?
The law states that it would go down if you spend more than 1.25% of your TRL, your transportation revenue limit.
Okay, so it's hard to make it go down. It doesn't go down with your enrollment. It doesn't go down. It's
not based off enrollment at all.
Right. So depending on at what point in time Scottsdale ever got to 8.1 million, I don't know what year we reached that and what our costs were that got us to that point, we can, year after year after year, continue to ship more to M&O if we can continue to find more efficiencies. Right.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right.
Yes. Board Member Kirby, you can. And that's why we have those continuous things that we're continuing to do, because that potentially will not go down and we can continue to save money and go into other areas of M&O.
Okay. And then my last question is on the areas that you're looking for efficiencies. I think that's great. As you're looking for efficiencies, how do you approach it? Do you say, I want to go find $500,000. It's a $500,000 challenge, and let's go try to find it? Or do you just kind of look at the different areas and see what you can come up with?
Madam President, Board Members Kirby, I can tell you what I do for Bert, and then Bert's more than happy to come up here and tell what he does. In several years, especially the past 2 years, Dr. Peterson and I looked at Bert and said, cut $500,000 and figure out how to do that. But also looking at things like we're talking about the procurement and talking about being able to have an open PO so that you can buy the gas that week at the cheapest rate that you can possible. I know Bert has done some things where he did not rehire a lead mechanic and transferred around some responsibilities and other items like that. So there's a lot of items. Some are specific, and Bert does those within and then there are some that are directives from Dr. Peterson and myself of you're just going to have to cut because we need it for the budget capacity.
My last challenge on transportation is I would encourage you to take a look at two metrics: cost per rider and our utilization. How many seats do we have available in the district, and how many riders are we carrying? And do two things with those two metrics. Look at them for Scottsdale for the past 3 years, and then also look at them for 2013, because all the data is out there publicly, for Chandler, Gilbert, and Deer Valley, to try to help estimate how big is the opportunity. Now, we don't want to go get the opportunity all in 1 year because we might turn our organization upside down trying to do that. But maybe it's a multi-year challenge of how do we start nipping and grabbing this opportunity and have an idea of how many dollars are really out there.
Madam President, Board Member Kirby, one of the other things we've talked about is going to take several years because it's going to take some capital dollars. When we go to replace buses on some routes, we know we're not going to have 84 students on that route. It may only have 46 students. So why are we running an 84-passenger bus when we could be having a 54-passenger bus? So we're going to look at those things also as constraints. So when it comes to time to do some of those replacements, we are smart about the replacement. Same with some of our handicap buses. Some of our special needs handicap buses are large buses, but they only transport 2 or 3 students. So we need to be smart about getting the right bus that fits those routes for those students. And so we're putting that plan together too, but that will take additional capital dollars down the road, but we're looking at it because we have to look at the full spectrum as well as our own operations. And then training, we're trying to figure out how can we get a commitment to somebody that if they come to us, get their CDL and then leave, how can we get paid back? Or what constraint? There may be nothing, but we got to try to do something because That's what hurts us the most. We get folks in the pipeline, they get their CDL, and then they go work somewhere
Right.
else because they have their CDL. That's probably the biggest culprit for us right there.
Okay, so on the first example you gave, is there, I don't know how our leases are. I'm not educated in that at all. We could talk more about that tomorrow as well. But is there not an opportunity to sell some of this capacity now on an open market somewhere and then use those dollars to go buy the smaller buses we need?
To a degree. I mean, you're not going to get as much for a used bus as you will what you're going to have to pay for a new bus. So obviously there's a delta there. When we take our buses out of service, we do sell them to other school districts. Some cases we've had school districts call us and lease some of our buses. We have a couple buses in reserve in case something breaks down. Other districts have had no buses and they've called and leased them. We actually leased them and made money off of them. So we can do that, and we do sell the buses, but it's kind of like you buy a new car and you trade in your old car and you get 20 cents on the dollar, 25 cents. So that's our dilemma. How much will we get?
Yeah, but if I trade in an 8-seater SUV for a motorcycle, I can pay for it. I mean, if I have a
unless you get a custom motorcycle, yeah. But it's the same thing here. The prices are one of those things that we constantly look at that and see where we can do it, and we're gonna really delve into those routes now because we have a better understanding of what those needs are and how we can downsize in certain areas. So that's going to be our next focus.
I don't want us to walk away thinking we have to have a capital. Would it be a bond or a capital override? When you said we need capital dollars. Okay, so I don't want us to hinge going after some of this capacity efficiency on a bond. Okay, right, thank you.
Mr. Jackson.
Danny, great presentation. Could you go back to the comparison slide, the district comparison slide? I know this is a really simple chart. I just want to make sure I understand it. Transportation revenue, would you tell me how that figures?
The transportation revenue is figured by the formula that's built into the state worksheets that I summarized here.
Okay. And that's revenue from the state of Arizona, correct? How does that?
It's transportation revenue. We don't receive state aid. Scottsdale, all the taxpayers pay all the money. But it's the budget capacity that the state says that we're allowed to have for transportation.
Okay, terrific. And so this is a real simple. This chart says that essentially we are that 925,000 delta between revenue and expense. That actually, does that end up in the M&O budget?
Yes, it stays. So the revenue or the budget capacity is part of the overall $143 million budget that we have this year.
Right.
So those dollars are being spent in other areas within the M&O budget.
Gotcha. So we're so efficient relative to some of our peer districts that, for example, Chandler, they're negative 3.2 million. It's correct. A little bigger district, but not much.
A little bit bigger district. Drive a little bit more. There's a lot of items that go into it, as discussed a little bit last Thursday during our board meeting. There's a lot of areas geographically.
Okay.
There are a lot of areas that go into what's transportation and what's not. And when I did this data, I've been talking to some other these particular districts and saying, well, why? What's the difference? What are we doing? We're doing it great, but what are we doing? Some of these, Chandler transports more of their high school students than we do. We have a lot that come out on city bus and stuff, especially like in the Arcadia area and down the Trolley area. Well, Chandler doesn't have as expansive of a bus service. Others pay for tokens. You take some of the downtown districts and they take tokens. Other ones, such as Deer Valley. Deer Valley does not charge sports for the cost of their bus. Well, if you don't charge sports for the cost of the bus, it has to come out of the M&O budget.
Right. No, I mean, great point. I guess my point to this all is I've always been impressed how incredibly well run our transportation department is. The fact that you're analyzing idle times and obviously all the work that's done into reducing the number of stops, those are the little things that aren't so little that add up to this number right here. So my point, I guess, was, Bert, I just want to applaud the job you're doing once again on running, and Board Member Kirby's right. I mean, continue, please, to find efficiencies. But boy, it seems to me you're running a incredibly efficient transportation department, safe. We're getting great audits from the state Department of Transportation, or anyway. And you're doing a wonderful job, I guess is the point I wanted to make, and very impressive.
Thank you so much. In an effort to keep our comments to less than 20 minutes per subject, I just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item is item 8G, schools capacity update.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Terry Wooster is going to present some school capacity information, where we are currently. We know we have a lot of work to do coming up. He's going to share an initial slide talking through the methodology, and then we'll just quickly go through each school so folks know that it is in there so they can look at them, so they understand how we arrived at it, and then give the overview of where we currently are with all of our schools and classrooms and capacities.
Good evening, Madam President, governing board members, Dr. Peterson, and audience. And thank you for allowing me to present my first time. And so, as an introduction to my task, I was requested to go back and revisit the capacities and find a baseline from where the capacity started through a volume of years. And so I chose to use a baseline that will telegraph into this presentation. And with that, we'll just go forward. I grouped the schools in their studies by learning communities. And obviously Arcadia becomes first. And so as we bring up Arcadia High School, we should talk about the methodology of how we arrived at some of the capacity studies previously and how it's still moving forward. And that is, as you can see in this slide, the regular classrooms are now assigned a number of students, and that number of students can be flexible. But we've counted the classrooms, and in the classrooms within the facility, as well as we've counted science classrooms, we've counted special education classrooms, we've counted EIS, and whatever classroom that may be assigned to. And we've also included a utilization percentage multiplier in that. So we first totaled the regular classrooms, science classrooms, then used a utilization number multiplier that gave us a subtotal, added in special education and other classrooms, excluded space such as computer labs. There are no assignments for students in computer labs, science labs, etc. And then we looked at specialty spaces such as 3D art, and you can see TV, scene shop, and down to the weight room, 28 students there. That math obviously rolls up to a student capacity within that methodology. We call that a program capacity, etc. The SFB capacity at the bottom of the page then is basically a multiplier per square foot based upon their guidelines, minimum guidelines. And you can see that that is a 2009 capacity number. Going forward to Ingleside, again in this methodology, it's similar, where we may look at an emergency capacity, and that being a situational capacity, but mostly our attention should be drawn to the program capacity, where again we're looking at special classrooms, students in special classrooms, and then rolling that down to classrooms such as 6 through 8, and counting the students who may be in that classroom. In that case, we have a number of 1394. We have the option of adding a utilization rate there. It's not necessary, but we put it at the bottom here where it relaxes that number to 1170 or 1157. And when you look at that number, then that is in relationship to some of the other square footages of the SFB. Now, one of the things that's important to note is that sometimes the SFB number will not match a program number because not all schools are alike. Architecturally, they change. There are different sizes, there are different shapes, things of that nature, and or there's different designs related to how you circulate students through a building, etc. And so the SFB number sometimes is impacted by the assignment of square footages. Going even further into elementary schools, you'll see that that same methodology applies, but we've taken out the utilization rate because educational or elementary students tend to be space-oriented. You're assigned a space. That's true in middle school, but not always. Sometimes students will move around in a middle school. But as you can see, that same methodology of calculation, at least at Arcadia Neighborhood Learning Center, calculates up to 517 students. And at Hopi, 920. And at Tavan, 967. The same applies to Chaparral Learning Community, where at Chaparral High School, going through the same methodology that we worked through with the Arcadia High School, you can see that student capacity is 2,502. Cocoa Palm Middle School is 1,167. Copper Ridge is 1,492. Cherokee Elementary School, 755. And Cochise Elementary School, 803. And lastly, Sequoia Elementary School, 846. At Coronado Learning Community, Coronado High School, the calculated capacity could be 2,900. Supai Middle School, 1,282. Hohokam Elementary School, 808. Pima Elementary School, 806. Tonalea Elementary School, 469. Yavapai Elementary School, 639. And then going to the numerous schools at Desert Mountain Learning Community. The Desert Mountain High School, 2,798. Desert Canyon Middle School, 962. Mountainside Middle School, 1357. Cheyenne Traditional School, 1136. Anasazi, 832. Desert Canyon Elementary School, 836. Laguna Elementary School, 970. Redfield Elementary School, 660. And then finally at the Saguaro Learning Community, we have 2,205, 930 at Mojave Middle School, Kiva Elementary School, 772, Navajo Elementary School, 689, and Pueblo Elementary School, 738. And that brings us to a summary. And so to get to this summary, it's taken quite a volume of work because within those calculations, we went back and looked at what spaces that we knew had been decommissioned. And so we've inputted those spaces that we knew that were decommissioned to recalculate that. We queried what pre-K classrooms were assigned to different classrooms and added those calculations there, as well as Panda, Sol, et cetera. And so we've taken the information that we could ascertain in a short amount of time and added it into those calculation sheets. And so those calculation sheets are available for work. They're worksheets, basically, and that's where we start. They're a baseline now. And so in looking at elementary K-8 school enrollments, you can see the enrollment, and this is as of last Wednesday. These are our enrollments that are reported, and the total of elementary is 11,541. Now within that open enrollment cap column, those numbers represent the assignment for the cap for open enrollment as it exists today. It's important to know that when you talk about capacities in architecture, there are numerous ways to assign capacity. You can assign a capacity by choice, and that's what these numbers represent, our choice, particularly in OE cap and a new program capacity, because it's a calculation of variables that you can change. And so you can change to fit, et cetera. If you calculate a capacity in architecture that is linearly driven, such as code or SFB or square footage, those all have their own directions. They don't always match up to choice, et cetera. And so what we're looking at are capacities that we choose to assign at this point. And so you look at the program capacity that could be, is that, and you see those numbers, that it could be a total of 15,000 for elementary schools. But again, the need is to go back and begin to discuss with administration at sites and community, and to begin to find information that relates to the importance of how we make these square footage assignments to teachers, et cetera. And so this is the matrix that we start from, we start looking at, et cetera. And same from middle school enrollments. You'll see the, as of last Wednesday, the enrollment for the middle schools are 4,497. And our cap and our new, or at least for tonight, our program capacity. And high school enrollments, 8,518. The open enrollment cap is 10,299. And the new program capacity, 11,390. You should note in the middle column, the OE cap, is that you can see Arcadia High School has been changed based upon discussion to 1,700. And so there have been modifications in this OE cap to reflect that.
But also in the high schools, the program capacity was already reduced 83% because teachers use their classrooms 5 of the 6 periods a day.
That's correct.
So when it was talked about earlier this evening, bringing it down, we've already done that when this number was calculated. So if we wouldn't have, this number would have been another 17% higher.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So that is where I'm at this point. This is a substantial volume of work that will be moving forward into the future, and to take ownership from where we found it in the baseline, and then to advance it into the spring and talk, et cetera, and bring it back to the board for further discussion and evaluation. Questions?
Mr. Brown?
A lot of numbers. When I look at the enrollment numbers, does that reflect all the students on the campus?
It reflects, I would say yes, it reflects all the students that are enrolled to attend that school.
Well, I looked at Hohokam. Isn't there, does the pre-K come in there too?
Yes, we've added the pre-K.
So that does include everybody that's on that campus?
As far as we can ascertain within the short time frame that we've been looking and talking, is that we have found the pre-K, the pre-K enrollment numbers, and we have ascertained also the Panda numbers. We've ascertained the decommission numbers, and so we've actually tried to assimilate an accuracy as appropriate to this era as possible.
Thank you.
Mrs. Kirby?
Thank you for all your work. This is good stuff. It's at a really good level of detail that will help us make good decisions going forward. I have a question around the 83% utilization, and it's a general question. And Dr. Peterson just explained why it's used at the high school against the regular classrooms and the science classrooms. But when you go to a middle school page, that 83% utilization is applied also to the special ed and the EIS. Then if you were to go to an elementary page, there's no 83% at all. So help me just, what's the rationale behind, the layman's terms rationale behind that?
Follow the activity of a student or the age group. And so an elementary school may be, a student may be assigned to that classroom, and they're in that classroom with the teacher at a teaching station, and that's an envelope that they exist in and occupy that classroom. As you move to middle schools, the students are larger, and they move more throughout the campus. And for whatever reason, there may be a need to be able to allow them a little more grace, and or teachers a little more grace based upon the curriculum, as well as the need for educational technologies and how spaces are used in educational technologies. And so that's why I added it to the bottom, et cetera. That is something that is an optional way to approach that. But then as you go to high schools, is of course the the classes are schedule changing. Students are moving back and forth, et cetera. And so teachers as well may not be assigned a classroom. A teacher may be assigned a space to teach in, and then, of course, through those hours, and that teacher may leave and go to prep somewhere else, and then that class used in another way. And so, again, you're trying to create a little margin or grace within that school district or school facility. And so the total utilization of 83% is not a hard and fast number. It can be 75, it can be 90, et cetera. It is a number that you just add to be able to accommodate the students as they move through their age groups.
Well, I want to make sure it's very clear. Middle school and high school teachers, both of the middle school and high school, get a prep period each day. And so of the 6 teaching periods, one of the 6 is a prep period. And so that's where we get the 83%, because it's basically 70% of the day, 1/6 of the day, so it's 17%. So that's why we use 83%, because one period of the day, that classroom isn't utilized, because that teacher is there on their prep time. And so the other 5 periods of the day, it is utilized. So that's how we arrive at that.
Okay, that I get that, but why for high school is the 83% not applied to the special ed and the but it is at the middle school?
Because in a lot of those smaller classrooms in high school, they're there all the time, where in middle schools or elementary schools, you may have pullouts and those types of things. So it's one of those, can we do it? And that's what we're going to look at to tweak. But in high school, typically they're self-contained classes and they're there all the time.
What about middle school?
Middle school, for the most part, it may be self-contained, like self-contained gifted versus having a pullout. So we're going to go back and look at those. So we wanted to start out with that assumption and then make a correction based on what was actually happening in those schools. Because that's what program capacity is. It's what's actually happening in each of those campuses.
So what I'm hearing you say is that that 83% utilization applied at the high school level before special ed. When we go back, it may be different. When you come back to us next time, Arcadia may look different than Chaparral, based upon so the 83% could be applied.
It could be, but most of those are self-contained classrooms, and they're there the whole time. So they don't. What happens is the aide and several of the teachers are in there, and the kids typically in those self-contained rooms don't go out one period of the day. They stay there all 6 periods of the day, and the teachers and aides are with them.
I'm kind of lost. I'll get back.
Yeah.
We'll get offline. Okay, so along those lines, though, on September 16th, we also talked about ideal utilization ratios for elementary, 85 to 90, middle and high. So is this the same utilization ratio, or is that another one that's applied below the line? Okay,
but I think that was something Pam gave. Is that?
It was from Rick's presentation last spring, where he had the utilization recommendations for the different schools.
Well, this was September 16th.
Right, and I pulled in some of the slides from Rick's presentation last around utilization.
Okay.
And so the 83% does take into that prep period at the middle and high school, so that they don't have to travel and move rooms. And it's automatically taken care of at the elementary level, because that room during their prep time is also left empty.
Okay, so we said on September 16th that the ideal utilization ratio for traditional elementary schools is 85 to 90%. So now we're saying for elementary, there's no utilization goal. 100% is the goal.
They have their classroom empty also. It's just taken into account already, because that teacher is scheduled in there and it's left empty during that same period. So even though it may look like their number is larger, they actually have a classroom that sits empty, similar to that 83% that's taken out of at the high school and the middle school. But I'd have to go back and look at the presentation that Rick did, because I think he was talking about, I'm not sure if he was talking about the same thing of utilizing the classrooms or the campus as a whole.
He was talking about the campus as a whole. This is the first time we've talked about utilization of classrooms, and that's what I'm trying to. I'm getting confused on utilization, I guess, of classroom versus campus is a good.
You're right, Ms. Kirby. That should not have said ideal. It should have said average utilization, and the reason it is there is in an elementary school, you are not going to have 33 students because they don't come in 33 student packages. So in one classroom, you may have 28. One classroom, you may have 30. One, you may have 29. One, you may have 34. And so when you put all those together, you're not getting a full, every single student in those classrooms, where in high school and stuff you are because of the way you can schedule them. But in a elementary school, let's say you have 5 first grade classrooms over at Hopi. Not every one of those classrooms is going to have the full number of students. And so on average, when you look across elementary schools, typically with all your grade levels there and all the students going to it, about 90% of all the students that school could hold are in attendance there. That's what that is saying. So that's not ideal. It should have said average. And that's so there is confusion there. And so we'll need to clear that up.
So I'm still, though, okay, I did average. This also says middle and high school ranges from 75 to 85. So Arcadia, what's up on my computer here, 1876 is the total program capacity for Arcadia. Would that average of 75 to 85 be applied against the 1876?
No, because if you look, there's 83% was already taken off above it.
I thought that was against classrooms.
Well,
but they're the same.
Yeah, that's what
They're
as
the
I'm
same.
sitting here listening to the conversation, I think we need to sit down and have a conversation and look over the past, because I'm thinking that's exactly it. We've just worded them differently. So it's how much of the campus is utilized, and we're already putting in here with these figures, the 83%, to already bring it down so that you don't have the traveling teachers, so that you have the extra spaces for the other things that occur on a campus. But I would want to go back over, Board Member Kirby, the past presentation and make sure that that's accurate.
Okay, let's do that, because if we go into community discussions in January, we got to get this buttoned up, tight, and clear so that folks trust us and what we're saying, putting out there. Okay, I have some further Arcadia questions, but I'll yield the floor.
Mrs. Perleberg?
My question is, piggybacking off this point, is we have certainly as board and as a community been provided in the past utilization numbers for honestly many years.
Right.
And one of my concerns currently is we head into the discussions ahead of us. And thank you for all this work leading into that. That is terrific. And I'm glad we're getting started on that so immediately. Even though we're still celebrating our override pass, I'm glad we're getting right to work, so that's wonderful. But I guess I am trying to, in my mind, think, I mean, I know I still have those lists of what schools were listed at, their capacity, their utilization, and I am also concerned on how they will compare and how we can explain, if there are differences, why. So just moving forward.
Right, exactly right. And I can tell you from my directive is and request is to go back and look at the data and ascertain how we got to where we're at, and go, because the data that we have now related to the current enrollments and the utilization rates are related to increasing class sizes. And so we're reducing class sizes. And so we need to go back and start, well, where were the class sizes before we started increasing them? And so we want to say, that's where we start. How do we change that, et cetera? And how do we create a point of view that's appropriate, as you're asking?
Right. Thank you so much.
Mr. Brown?
You know, I've been beating this thing up for years. I'm going to go to Hohokam. Years ago, or just a few years ago, it had a capacity of about 750, 760. Now it's got a capacity of 868. But here's a school that's 50-some years older, and we're saying it can hold more kids, but is the space fit for more kids? Is the building really able to hold? Space is one thing, but the status of the building or the shape the building's in is something else. So, you know, I still think the numbers come out bogus, tell you the truth. So if you go back 10 years and it can hold this, and you go forward 10 years and it can hold a bunch more, but it's an old building. So I'll just point that out.
Mrs. Kirby?
Okay, so please don't feel beat up here, because you just came into this. We know you're new, and you're picking it up where someone left off, and different application of experience, right?
Right.
So, but there was an article published that got quite a bit of airtime in the Scottsdale Republic. I don't remember when it was. It was, maybe someone can help me, but it had all of our schools and the utilizations, and it was right. That is what the community believes our utilizations are, and so as you begin to reconcile to the past, that's what I would encourage you to try to reconcile to. Okay.
Very good.
And then I would like to talk about Arcadia and some of our higher Arcadia, Hopi, looks like Kokopah, Cheyenne. Is there, yes, are we going, let's talk Arcadia. Are we going to have any 6/5 teachers at Arcadia next year?
That would be fully up to staffing. I mean, we didn't intend to have 6/5 this year, but there was issues that occurred and decisions that were made, and we honored those decisions, and that's why we have them. We didn't have to have them,
Okay.
so I'll leave it at that.
So-
Also, I want to go back to that the article in Arizona Republic. That was a snapshot in time, and since then, things have changed. We have to explain that to the public, because we moved preschools into schools. We moved Seoul into Coronado High School. We moved, the community ed program up to Laguna. We're moving nutritional services over to Yavapai. So all of a sudden, those classroom spaces are no longer available. So we'll have to explain that to community as we start our meetings in January. And our goal is to bring back our full report to the governing board in March, after we have community forums.
I would like to add, Dr. Peterson, for Board Member Kirby, that sometimes you might only need one more sections of math, so you wouldn't hire a 1.0 teacher at a secondary school, you add 0.2. Well, to find that 0.2 teacher might not be something that occurs, so instead that 0.2 goes to the 6/5. So when I was a middle school teacher, I had 6/5 occasionally, because you needed one extra section, but it's not a full 1.0 FTE. So I would guess, and Sean would have to verify, but probably almost all of our high schools have 6/5, and it's because of the way the staffing occurs. And like at elementary, when you need one more person, you need them to teach one of everything. Well, at high school, the same person can't teach, and they're not HQT for math, science, social studies. So it's a bunch of 0.2s that you end up needing sometimes, and they're handled by 6/5 for staffing.
Where does that 6/5 teacher, what class, they don't have their own classroom since they're only teaching 0.2 of the day. Do they
Well,
go?
most of them are currently 1.0 teachers, and they teach that 6th class during their prep time.
Okay.
So they're in their classroom and
still
they're
in there.
paid.
Okay.
Yes.
And then what about roaming teachers? Can we put that one? We don't do that. We have no intentions of doing that. We're not doing that. Okay. So then let's help me visualize, if we have 12 classes at Arcadia High School with over 40 kids, and we want to bring down, we just passed the override, we're going to reduce class sizes. Where are those kids going to go? Where are the empty classrooms for those kids at Arcadia High School?
Well, part of what created that at Arcadia is that the teacher that is teaching is 0.8. So that classroom is actually open 2 sections a day. So what if that teacher was a 1.0, then those class numbers would have gone down. So part of that is the staffing of it, and not all of their rooms are used even 1.0. Some of their teachers are only 0.8. So if you were to add another 0.2, the room's already there.
But then you take away their planning time.
No,
And
they're actually only 0.8 and only teach 4 classes. They don't teach 5. Yeah.
Okay.
So there are some rooms that are only used 4 times a day instead of even 5 because the teachers they're not 1.0.
Thank you.
Mr. Jackson?
Just to dovetail on what Board Member Kirby said, I think a little bit, some of the concern we had at Arcadia this evening, capacity concern was really class size concerns. And I think with the override passing, hopefully, we're able to start to address some of those issues. I believe if we get class sizes down, that'll certainly help. But last year when we spent all the time trying to define rigor, seems to me defining capacity, I guess, or conveying that to our community in a clear, so they can understand it, would also go a long way. Not an easy thing to do, but anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thank you for all your hard work, and we're certainly glad to have you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Mr. Brown.
I'm just going to throw this out as an idea. With our open enrolled folks coming into Arcadia, I mean, it's a beautiful school. It was hugely popular, or it is hugely popular. I might throw out the idea that we look at Coronado and say, if we took away some of the restrictions on class sizes, in that you had to have 20 kids or 30 kids in order to have the class, if we opened that up at Coronado, made sure that comparable classes were available at Coronado as there are in Arcadia, the attraction might be there are smaller class sizes. We now take a place that maybe didn't have the class before because they didn't have enough students, and we beefed that up. It just take away some of the restrictions, so that school becomes more attractive to open enrollment from Arcadia or wherever. So I'll just throw that out, and you guys can think about it.
Okay, I'd like to wrap up this discussion because it's still discussion and we're not voting tonight. Mrs. Kirby?
So to wrap up, are we considering a multi-year plan beyond next year to begin to bring down our utilization in the schools that we have a very, very high utilization ratio?
I would say, Board Member Kirby, that would be the purpose of going through this exercise to say we are going to look at this data and refresh this data so that it is advancing forward in a new perspective.
Okay. And I've been asked this question quite a bit, Dr. Peterson, on the open enrollment cap, which is 1,700 now for Arcadia. Let's say we hit the cap and we have 1,700 enrolled, and then the third week of school, 5 open enrolled kids leave. Do we backfill them with 5 more that are on the wait list, or do we allow it to drop to 1,755, or what is it, 1,695?
Part of it is it depends. Once school starts, a lot of those things stop because school has started, especially after the first 10 days of school. So the first 10 days, we may accept a few because there's that float period where we have no-shows that we don't know, and so we try to adjust for some of that because we've staffed, and we want to make sure we have efficient staffing. But we wouldn't, and a lot of times those students may have gone to another school. At Arcadia's thing, maybe not. They're still on a waiting list, especially if they're 9th graders that want to get into Arcadia. So if we have a little bit of room there, we may accept a few because of no-shows, but it's going to be very limited. We don't right now, we don't say, okay, we've got some things, come on in. It's too far into the year, and we don't do that.
So is it fair to say after the 10th day, we don't backfill anymore?
I would say at that point, it's minimal. And sometimes we've done it because there's been a request that's come from a specific area, but it's not something that we just go out and continue to do. We stop, but we've had requests for various reasons, and we've looked at them on a one-by-one basis.
Thank you.
We may more at the semester. If there were
at the semester break, so January?
Yeah, because then they're not in progress of grades and all that
So
happens at the high school.
I guess the answer is yes, we do backfill them. There are many opportunities to backfill any open enrolled students who left, and we will take advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah, and it becomes tricky with grades at the high school, so it's now you don't do it during after those 10 days.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Jump right in, huh? The next item is item 8A, H, revision of Governing Board Policy JFB, open enrollment.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. As you know, we've had a lot of discussion about open enrollment and our policies compared to ASBA's policies and things. And we've also done a lot of work with our open enrollment processes. So Michelle Marshall is going to present to you, I believe this is our first read. We'll bring it back for actual approval. We did change some dates previously because we needed to do that to get things going, and we've seen a good flow of traffic to our open enrollment office. But Michelle's going to share this with you, and then after, based on your discussions, we will bring it back for a actual approval at the next board meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson and Sandra. As Dr. Peterson mentioned, I'm bringing to you for a first read some recommended revisions to our policy JFB open enrollment. To remind our audience, in October, as Dr. Peterson mentioned, we asked you on behalf of our principals to move up some deadlines in that policy, and we asked for you to do that with just the deadlines because we were trying to beat the clock a little bit. So now we are asking you to approve some additional recommendations based on cleanup language as well as recommendations from the Arizona School Boards Association regarding comparison to their model policy. So I provided you with red line versions of the policies, and I'll just highlight a few and then take some questions if you have any. One of the clarifications we're trying to do is to make sure that people understand that we do prioritize in-district open enrollment applications over out-of-district open enrollment applications. That was true before, but the language wasn't so clear, so we wanted to make that clear after hearing some feedback from our community. So we suggested a change to that language. Deleted reference to ECC Cholla and Oak because we no longer have those campuses. We also had feedback from our community. There was some confusion, it seemed, about whether pre-K students were going to roll up to their kindergarten in the same school. So that was already also in policy, but we wanted to make clear that not only are they going to roll up, but parents need to fill out additional documentation within the deadlines. That was not as clear in the previous language, and so we wanted to make sure people understand you're going to roll up, you're going to have a spot, but we need you to also fill out the documentation for registration just as you would if you were coming new. The reason for that is community ed does not collect the same documents for pre-K as we need to collect for enrollment in kindergarten. We are recommending addition of the ASBA model language regarding transportation, and that pretty much just tracks what the law says we need to do, and so that's straight out of the ASBA advisory. With that, I'll take any questions.
Are we good? Wow. Awesome. Wow. Awesome. Thank you for all your hard work. Oh, Ms. Kirby. Too soon.
No.
I want to know who's got over under tonight.
I don't have any questions because we just got the red lines yesterday, and I'm a little overwhelmed. And so
Sure.
there's a lot of red on those red lines.
Yes.
And so I just need some time to digest and understand
Absolutely.
it. And those red lines were sent to us yesterday to the whole board. Is it possible to make them part of the formal board presentation so that
Sure.
the community can see them and give feedback as well?
Sure, we can do that. And to explain for anybody who might be listening who doesn't know what we did, we normally provide a red line showing what is our current policy and what are our recommendations. This time we had a request to not only do that, but to compare our policy to the ASBA model. Our policy has been changed a lot over the years to try to fit what our community wants and what our schools are asking for, and so there are a lot of differences. So I'm happy to make that
Okay,
part
so
of the
just to
second.
be clear, it's current policy versus proposed, SUSD current, SUSD proposed,
Yes.
SUSD current versus ASBA template.
Yes, that's it.
Thank you.
And I apologize for not getting it to you till Monday, but we had some problems with formatting.
Right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe the last item on our information discussion is 8I, revisions to the 2015-16 high school planning guide.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. And I just would like to also reassure that with the open enrollment policy discussion, we're also looking at our open enrollment processes. And we've been meeting with our high school principals and our other principals, but mostly our high school principals, and we have a group with high school registrars and things to tweak some of our processes. Those aren't policy, but we're going to bring them back and share them with you so you can see the refinements we've done that based on the input from our high school principals, and I believe our high school principals are pretty happy with that. Our final presentation this evening is the revision of the planning guide, and Dr. Mitch Von Echten has been working with his whole group, and they're about ready to put this thing to bed so we can get high school registrations going this next year.
I think all of us want to be put to bed pretty soon.
Oh, come on. You have to admit it's earlier than you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. Sorry,
So
Madam
far, maybe I
President,
spoke
governing
too
board
soon.
members, Dr. Peterson, Sandra, it's my pleasure tonight to present to you the first read of the 2015-2016 High School Planning Guide. I want to first extend a thank you to my co-facilitator, Dr. Karen Benson, and to my administrative assistant, Rose Wright, for all the work they do in putting this together. Additionally, our 5 Ed Services assistant principals, our lead counselor, and representatives from CIMAR and e-learning. And lastly, a special thanks to our guests each week that work with us in putting this guide together. Those include curriculum specialists, lead teachers, and other district program directors. Just a little bit on timeline and process. We met from August 18th through October 6th. Those were 7 meetings at which, in those meetings, we review and revise all content special areas. Recommendations for consideration are presented by our assistant principals, curriculum specialists, lead teachers, and directors. Additionally, a lot of work is done to review and revise our record-keeping guidelines so as to promote best practices across all of our high school campuses. Tonight I have for you a summary of our work and our first read. In just under a month from now, December 9th, we will present this as a consent agenda for your approval. And by mid-December, we will finalize our common registration sheets in both English and Spanish, complete revisions within Synergy to reflect the current language, and post our high school planning guide electronically. Just to give you some background and context, the work we do, there's a lot of work that goes into this. We work out of a binder that includes the current high school planning guide that is this current year to provide our revisions. A very robust schedule, which is provided by Dr. Benson, that has our weekly agendas in terms of who will be presenting, what will be the content areas. And also we have forms that we utilize within the district. Those could be anything from how does a teacher make a course request for a new course to approvals for correspondence classes that are used at our site. So we can also review some of those tools that we use within the schools. And then something we haven't shared in the past is just, I showed you here with a PowerPoint, some of the scenarios we do and review in terms of really just articulating and make sure that we're employing and applying, I should say, the record-keeping guidelines effectively and consistently across our schools. So here's some examples of some of the scenarios we work through week by week. This same kind of scenario setting was provided to our guidance counselors at professional development, so they too can look at some of the things we confront and how do we address this and have best practices in terms of working with our students. In terms of new courses themselves, we do have some guiding principles that we apply. First of all, courses that are a necessity as a result of increased graduation requirements or in response to state statute. So an example I will provide you tonight is we are asking for approval of a 1-year science class, oceanography and astronomy. This has recently been approved by ABOR as a lab science, and so we want to get that to our students as an opportunity to complete one of their 3 years of lab sciences. Another guiding principle is that courses extend existing course sequences or further develop a flagship program within the district. So an example of that is, again, our critical languages, and you will see tonight that we're asking for approval of Russian 4 honors as an example to extend that trajectory for those learners. Also, new course proposals must be presented to the High School Planning Guide Committee the fall of each school year. And really, new course proposals are a very fluid process. Frankly, once this is approved and we have the new high school planning guide out in December of 2015, teachers, department chairs, our curriculum specialists will really already start to work on potential changes going into next year based on what they see for enrollment and program improvement and instructional programs at their school. And of course, then they must have those to us in that timeline and by the fall. Specifically, the new classes, or courses I should say, that we are providing to you tonight for your review would include, excuse me, let me back up here. We have a Russian 4, Japanese 4, and German 4 honors, and as again, these extend our critical languages in that trajectory for those students. Additionally, the class I just referenced, Introduction to Oceanography and Astronomy, and again, this is an ABOR approved lab science that we'll now be able to offer for our students. Personal Family Finance, this is a brick and mortar and e-learning course. This course has really been formally known as Business Math, and we've tweaked that title a little bit more to be reflective of really what the content area and curriculum reflects. I think very special about this class too is it will be offered in a blended format supported with e-learning materials, and that helps us achieve the goal of all of our students within the next few years of achieving a 0.5 e-learning elective credit, or excuse me, an e-learning credit in some kind of e-learning format. Blended does meet that expectation. Additionally, we had Business Information Systems, Introduction to Communication, Introduction to Medical Assisting, and Introduction to Agri-Science, all added as e-learning courses. And what that does is extend opportunities for our graduating seniors to pick up electives they might be short for. Also, we have brought some clarity to yearbook. So for instance, now we have yearbook 1, 2, and 3. This is also offered as a career and technical education course. But in the past, what we had was yearbook production, and that could be repeated for credit and repeated for credit and repeated for credit. And we thought it might be more appropriate to have an identified 1, 2, and 3 sequence. You would find the same with our request to approve Theater 3 and Theater 4 and Tech Theater 3 and Tech Theater 4, that rather than having those fine arts courses repeated for credit, a very definitive course that could be on a transcript and tracked more appropriately. Lastly, we have International Baccalaureate, Higher Level Art, and Higher Level Spanish. These are actually 2-year courses. They're 2 years in length due to meeting the hours required for higher level courses. And so in the past, we've seen these, again, just repeated as the same class, but we are instead going to give a definitive course code for each of those 2 years so as to better track that. A little bit of a bird walk before I go on further is we provided you the Red Line High School Planning Guide last week for your review, and one of the pieces that subsequent to that, we've already had conversations, Dr. Benson and Dr. Sakos and I, is a review of what we've put in there regarding EVIT. We honored a request to be very inclusive of a lot of information from the EVIT program from them. And a review, I think that it might be a little too much information. I think the best thing to do would be a little more prudent. We're going to scale that back as we have done in the past, and our counselors do a fine job of directing students that are interested in those programs directly to our site. I don't want a message that we're growing, that we're trying to move kids over there. Fabulous programs, but I think it could be best done with information provided directly by our counselors. Banked courses, banked, what we do is we take them out of the catalog, but we do keep them within the Synergy system for future reference. One, we have kids that might have these on a transcript, and we might need to refer to it in the future. Number two, we might have principals and site leaders that are looking to bring a course back for their own programmatic offerings. This year, courses we are going to bank include photojournalism, Read 180, Hip Hop 1 and 2 Beginning Yearbook. Frankly, these courses have seen little to no enrollment over the last several years. Beginning Yearbook, and as I've already referenced to that, Beginning Yearbook and Yearbook production with the new Yearbook 1, 2, and 3, there's no longer any need for that specific course. We have Astronomy, and that's brick and mortar, which is being banked, and the Oceanographic and Marine Studies, which is a one-semester course being banked because we're bringing in the new year-long course, which is ABAR approved. And lastly, American Arizona History and Honors. It's felt by our by the high school planning guide and supported by principals that this course competes directly with American History Advanced Placement. Our goal is to see kids enroll in not only credit-bearing classes for Scottsdale, but when possible, college-bearing credit classes. And so do want to point out that our students still have the opportunity among our campuses to enroll in advanced placement, dual enrollment courses, or of course the general ed American history is still available to our students. Again, a little bit of a bird walk again, but I want to bring this one to your attention because I'm going to need your assistance in January. Coronado has done a fantastic job in developing their early college program. There's just some pieces they still need to work on. To date, they have a committed partnership with Scottsdale Community College. They've established goals, outcomes, and indicators of success for their early college program, and they are in the process of creating a program of study. That work right now consists of identifying academic support classes, English language arts and math course sequencing that articulates with SCC so we can prepare our students and make sure that they're college ready, and identification of dual enrollment opportunities and building capacity with our dual enrollment opportunities. I mentioned this to you tonight because in January it'd be very possible that Mrs. Tarkington and myself would come forward with a tweak or two to a class that we would ask for your approval in the high school planning guide. So I just want to be forward looking. With that said, I really want to give a special thanks to Coronado administration, teachers, and counselors for their work, our Scottsdale curriculum specialists, and most importantly, I shouldn't say most importantly, but very importantly, our SCC leadership and their instructors who have worked with us on this project. Again, my thanks to all of the members of the high school planning guide. It's a pleasure to work with these professionals, and with that, I'll take any questions you might have.
Ms. Kirby?
Thank you for the presentation. And this isn't really a question, but I'd like for you to spend a little bit of time talking about the Arizona, I think it was American History Honors going away because I just don't want the headline to be SUSD eliminating honors history. In the principal meeting, you provided a great deal of background and rationale as to why this is a positive change. So I just would like for you to take a few minutes to share it for those who are watching.
No, I don't think we're removing any rigor or challenging our students any less. There's ample opportunity for those students to receive that, for instance, in a dual setting or the AP setting. When I spoke to you last spring regarding AP, I was asked a question about my feelings regarding honors competing directly with an advanced placement course, and it's my professional opinion that that's not the appropriate thing to do. I would like to steer those kids into that AP setting, and I would hope that our general ed classes rise to a level that it's challenging and rigorous for those students that are within that setting. The research I've done, well, first some other background. In other content areas aside from social studies, English for instance in the past, we have moved to eliminate that same competition and try to encourage the kids into the AP setting and train and build capacity for our teachers within that. Some of the research I've done is I believe very strongly in two of the schools that are currently offering the honors, there's significant numbers in terms of the sections. I think balanced against the sections of AP. In one situation, 5 sections of honors, 2 sections of AP. I find that a little bit of an imbalance. I would far rather see those kids in that honors moved into an AP and be challenged in that manner and build a full 1.0, 5 sections of advanced placement. The remaining students would still have that opportunity if they're not prepared or, don't want that particular kind of challenge or it doesn't work for their post-secondary endeavors, well, absolutely, then dual enrollment's an option, college-bound, it's credit-bearing. I really think that will help feed such courses as AP Government and AP Economics far more effectively than the current honors we have in place right now. So I don't know if I spoke to what you wanted to hear.
Left out one thing.
Okay.
And at least one thing that resonated with me, having just had a student go through the college application process, and that's that the honors classes, which we weight as an honors class, get unweighted by colleges and universities. So it's a little bit of a...
Well, a lot of our colleges and universities will look at unweighted transcripts regardless of AP or honors, but it would be my opinion that an admissions department would far rather see an advanced placement course on there rather than an honors course if they know both are available.
Right. In the AP, you have a chance of getting the credit with the test.
Absolutely.
And you don't
the
have
op-
that with just the honors.
Correct.
Which, okay, thank you. I just wanted
Nope.
to provide that background.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I remember sitting at a college board presentation where they told us that, and there were a lot of gasps in the room, especially for parents who already had their kids in 10th grade and had already done some honors work. And thinking back, they would have rather pushed a little bit and tried the AP courses in 11th grade. Any other comments before I start mine? I wanted to thank you so much. I know I've been on the high school planning guide committee, so I know how long they discuss ideas and that they work all year long. I've also been on the site councils where we have had classes presented to us as possibilities, and that's also an interesting discussion. So if parents ever want to get involved in something like that, those are very enlightening in both cases. As far as the Coronado Early College program, this is very exciting to me. I think Mrs. Kirby and Mrs. Perleberg and I went to Coronado for a Women in Leadership luncheon with some of the high school students there, and each time I went to a different table, I asked the girls if they thought they could get excited about something like that, and in every single instance, their eyes just lit up. And I would like to keep in mind, and I know everybody's been working really hard on this, what Mr. Brown said about some flexibility on class sizes making in Coronado, so that with a new program sometimes you don't get complete buy-in right in the beginning and people don't know that they can do it. But once we get this off the ground, it needs to be communicated to the middle schools that feed into Coronado that this is an opportunity, because they need to start right away as soon as they hit the high school working on this. And yeah, I think that covered everything that I had to do.
President Steed, in regard to that, Shelley Hummon at SUPI is very much on board. In fact, she'll be joining us as we attend an early college conference in December.
Right.
And it's a very strong relationship and articulation that's already beginning to develop there.
So wonderful. I'm so glad we can finally say something about what we're able to do here. So this is probably the most exciting thing that I've been able to help work on a little bit from behind the scenes. Also, the honors to the AP discussion, this truly does reflect what previous boards have decided to. We did that. We reduced redundant classes or the honors and AP. So I know that this is a continuing forward with that same philosophy that other boards have done. Oh, so this is the end of it. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay.
Dr. Peterson, you had mentioned, I know, and I am familiar or aware that some discussions about our enrollment procedures is going on right now in our district. And I do want to kind of assure everyone in our community out there that may be listening that, you know, this meeting was certainly not the one only discussion about enrollment that we're clearly going to have. It's just the start. But I wondered about that feedback coming from those discussions with regards to those procedures. Will our board receive that before approval? When's the time frame for getting that input?
Madam President, Board Member Perlberg, we can bring that to you. That's not a policy change, so it's not something to vote on, but we'll be more than happy, and that was our plan, was to show you what those process improvements have been. So I'll make sure that Pam has something as we move forward for our next board meeting or our next study
I don't
meeting.
want to rush them necessarily. I'm just trying to understand time frame as we move forward.
They're meeting, and so, but we've done some stuff already, and there's some things that we've already done that I think people have been positive about, right, Pam? So we can share that.
Thank you.
That sheet we've updated and a few of those things.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is future items. Board members may propose topics for future consideration. This evening, I wrote down that we're going to continue discussion on the M&O report, or we tabled that, and then continue policy JFB to the next agenda. Mrs. Kirby.
District goals and performance measures. And then along with that, and maybe before that, just so we can feel like we have something accomplished, is the values, and just revisiting the addition of that one value statement. I would like an information item on the Coronado Early College Program. And when we talk about it, okay, January, Dr. Peterson says, perfect. And then here's a new one. We have many committees. I didn't even know there was a high school planning guide committee until tonight. So we have so many committees where there's opportunity for community participation. I'd like to have a policy discussion on committees and just in procedures, policies and procedures, kind of broad. And I'll talk with, I'm happy to talk with President Sneed and Dr. Peterson of what my thoughts are and ideas on that.
Okay. Item 10, dates of upcoming meetings. Thursday, December 4th at noon, there's a study. Changed it to 10 o'clock because we're going to be talking about the goals and performance measures. Then after that will be an e-session. Yes.
We'll have the meeting, I think, from 10 to 12, and then an executive session from 12 to...
The e-session for superintendent performance.
David's written evaluation.
The contract evaluation, performance evaluation. At noon. Tuesday, December 9th at 5 o'clock, the regular board meeting. Thursday, January 8th, 12 o'clock, study session. Tuesday, January 13th, 5 o'clock, regular board meeting. Governing board reports. Mr. Brown.
Wow. Let's see, I only need about a half hour. So I'm probably going to get in trouble for this. There are elements out there in the world that hate it when I cheerlead and celebrate. Gosh, it was Halloween that week. What a week. It was just tremendous. So I start out, and I'm with Bert and the guys, and we went to the SRP thing, the clean air, and we won 2 awards there. I mean, how cool was that? And then later on, Scottsdale honors its own 3,500 years of experience in that room. Yeah, I'm going to celebrate that. That was huge. And then, the next day, I'm over at Tonalea, and they had their character walk. And you know what? There were parents there. The teachers were great. The teachers were engaged. The kids were $1 million. It was just fun, fun, fun. So, yep, in spite of all you guys, I'm celebrating. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'd like to, first of all, congratulate all of SUSD and our community for investing in our schools, in our children's future. Thank everyone for their hard work, their commitment, their belief in our mission. It's just infectious. We were all congratulated yesterday by every single district in Nevick. They just said, great job. I heard about how we saw the little orange signs over on the west side. Like, we don't know how you guys did it, but thank you. We celebrated with several other districts who also passed, so we're seeing a strong support for education. I'd like to congratulate Mrs. Kirby on her reelection. And my November reminder, which will be repeated in December, to please consider tax credit donations this year before December 31st directly to any school of your choice. And you can also choose the program of your choice if you wish. Also, attended the ASBA Legislative Conference with some of the newly elected officials. It was very interesting. I encourage board members to attend any sessions that they can at the ASBA Annual Conference, December 10th to the 12th. They have a lot of the questions that get asked about finance the answers are available during those breakout sessions. And also, just wanted to repeat that I went to the NEVIC luncheon, and we had a lot to celebrate. So thank you for mentioning all of that. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.